Chapter 1911. Once Tai Butian's initial excitement had passed, she started to practice the martial arts that she had learned since she was young. She displayed each and every move, causing the divine spirit in the dark to shake its head vigorously. What a pity! She had such good aptitude and such a high cultivation level, but she was practicing such trashy martial arts. It was a complete waste of resources. I can't watch this anymore. But Tai Butian was especially serious in her practice. She put in a lot of effort in each and every move. Tai Butian's heart had never been touched before. Strength. If ZJ was strong enough, how could he have been abducted so easily? How could he have caused her husband to be on the verge of death? In the past, ZJ had always been under Chu Yang's protection. Although she knew that strength was very important, she had never thought that it would be so serious. Now, Chu Yang's words kept replaying in Tai Butian's mind. Strength. The most important thing in this world is strength. Justice and fairness all depend on strength. Justice is not in the hearts of people, but strength. If you have strength, no matter how reasonable you are, no one will care about you. Even if you really have a huge grievance, you will have no place to complain. If a man with strength finds a beautiful woman, if he is unlucky, ZJ's woman will become someone else's plaything. Strength is shit? This is a world where the strong are respected. The weak are prey to the strong. Butian muttered under his breath, the strong are revered. The weak are prey to the strong. Before this, how could ZJ not know this saying? She had also thought that ZJ understood this saying very well. It was only when ZJ was abducted by Yuan Shu Lu and said those vulgar words to ZJ that Tai Butian realized that ZJ only truly understood the true meaning of that saying. This was a world where the weak are prey to the strong. This was a world where the strong are respected. He had never personally experienced it, and had never personally experienced it. He was just trying to understand it logically. Everyone could speak logically. But do you really understand Mingba? In the lower three heavens, Tai Butian, as the emperor, was the person with the highest position. They are the ones who set the rules and regulations, and they are above the system. They will never understand what is right and wrong. But now, she truly experienced it. Because she was no longer above the system. The heavenly imperial court also had its own laws. In addition, the laws in the Eastern Royal Immortal realms were even stricter compared to the dynasties in the lower three heavens. But even such a rule was useless in the eyes of people like Yuan Shu Lu. This was because Yuan Shu too had the qualifications to be ignored, not to mention that he had a huge sect behind him. Laws, rules, are ultimately only made for the weak. The so-called laws can only restrain the weak. This was Tai Butian's realization. It made her heart ache a little. Shit, the weak should be protected by the law. But he was bearing the greatest effect and restraint of the legal system. Shit, the strong should be restricted by the law, but while enjoying the protection of the law, they were destroying, trampling, and raping the law as they pleased. Since the beginning of this higher realm, right and wrong had been reversed, and black and white could no longer be distinguished. Tai Butian thought to herself as she practiced. The more she thought about it, the more she felt that it was very difficult for ordinary people to survive in this world, or perhaps, such a situation was ingrained in the bones of any person? How could such a situation really disappear? How could such a so-called privileged class not exist? Tai Butian thought about it and finally couldn't help but ask Chu Yang. Chu Yang pondered for a while and shook his head with a bitter smile. This really can't be eliminated. As long as there are people in this world, there will definitely be disparities. And once this disparity is pulled too far, it will form a class. Once a class is formed, there will definitely be unfairness. You want everyone to be equal, but it's completely impossible. Tai Butian sighed softly. I know you sympathize with the weak, but have you ever thought about how much effort the so-called strong, the rich, and the rich have to put in to succeed? Chu Yang said softly, they have put in the hard work of their ancestors, waking up early and working late. They have put in thousands and tens of thousands of times more effort than others. Now that they have made a name for themselves, why should they be equal to those fellows who don't even think about improving themselves? Do they go through life and death so that they can be equal to others? We discriminate against the rich and look down on exploitation and oppression. But we can't deny the hard work they have put in to get to where they are now. Chu Yang said deeply, Budian, actually, in a certain sense, the world is already very equal. The world is already very equal? Tai Budian was a little confused. They were talking about absolute inequality just now. How did it become complete equality in the blink of an eye? What kind of statement was this? Yes, in the face of hard work, everyone is equal. Chu Yang said calmly, as long as one puts in effort, there will be gains. Here we are all equal. Chu Yang laughed softly. Those who really work hard, even if they occasionally complain at the beginning, are just saying it. They still have to fight for what they have to fight for. When you are working hard every day for the sake of your country's life and ideals, almost all the time, where would you find the time to complain? To say that the world is unfair? So, the more you complain about the world being unfair every day, the harder it is for you to achieve anything. The more you achieve, the poorer and more dejected you are. The poorer and more dejected you are, the less status you have. The less status you have, the more you feel that the world is unfair. That's how it is. The so-called great harmony of the world is just an ideal. It can never be realized. And some inequalities are actually the driving force for people to move forward. Tai Budian fell into deep thought. Chu Yang said calmly, so, we don't have to worry about these. What we really need to worry about now is to survive in this heaven imperial court. And we need to live a glorious life until everyone who sees us will scold us in their hearts. Only then will we be considered to have truly succeeded. Scold us? Tai Budian asked curiously. Scold us. Look at how well they are doing. This fucking world is really too unequal. We are all humans. Look at the two of them living at the peak while we still have to struggle at the bottom. Based on what? Chu Yang smiled and said. Tai Budian laughed. Could this be your dream? No. Chu Yang's eyes narrowed. My ideal is slightly different from this. To be specific, it should be people of the level of the Heaven Imperial Court. Emperor Iho and only Saint Monarch should also say this when they see our world. Tai Budian was speechless. Even the Emperor Iho and only Saint Monarch were jealous of him. Then what kind of world was this? Tai Budian didn't know. And at least now, she couldn't even think of it. The calamity sword clanged. It alarmed Chu Yang. With a wave of his hand, the calamity sword flew into his hand. Chu Yang's heart was filled with the joy of reuniting after a long period of separation. Although they had only parted for an extremely short period of time, less than 2 hours, in Chu Yang's mind, it was as if he had been separated from the calamity sword for several generations. Old buddy, were you scared just now? Chu Yang smiled. The calamity sword trembled slightly. As if responding to him. Chu Yang laughed heartily. You almost reverted back to your original form. The calamity sword flashed, as if it was very dissatisfied with Chu Yang. A kind of grievance was clearly transmitted to Chu Yang's heart. Chu Yang laughed. The figure in the calamity sword smiled and lay down comfortably. Looks like I'm not needed anymore. It's really easy for me to be your protector. Sigh, it's better to return to my original form and laugh proudly in the sky. But this is small. He's really a ruthless character. No wonder Gong and Lao He value him so much. I'm really curious. How far can he go in the future? If he can rush into the supreme void and reach the level of Gong and Lao He, it won't be in vain for me to protect him this time. Chu Yang held the settling calamity sword again, and a strange emotion rose in his heart. He thought of the scene where ZJ held the calamity sword and slaughtered the Ghost Realm experts. No matter how strong they were, once the sword was out, they would die. No matter how high their cultivation was, as long as they were in front of my sword, they would die. No matter who it was, they would have to submit to my sword. And I only need one sword. I definitely don't need a second sword. Maybe that's the real peak of sword techniques. Chu Yang was fascinated. A simple sword contains thousands of great Daos. Humans, gods and ghosts, in front of such a sword, have no way to resist at all. This is the real meaning of the Calamity Sword technique. Chu Yang concluded fiercely in his heart. The Calamity Sword in his hand shone brightly. Immediately, clang! With a sword sound, it left Chu Yang's hand and flew into the air. In an instant, an unprecedented murderous aura exploded from the Calamity Sword. This murderous aura was so sharp, but it was also so thick. In such a world, only I am supreme. The cold, murderous aura raged back and forth in the realm of the God Source. The temperature of the air dropped by at least dozens of degrees. Rays and rays of majestic sword energy were emitted from the Calamity Sword. They crisscrossed and intersected, brilliant and mighty, unparalleled in the world. At this moment, the majesty of the sword energy made the soul of the Calamity Sword, who was hiding in the shadows, tremble. How can there be such a terrifying sword in the world? How can there be such a terrifying sword energy? Help, the Calamity Sword. The shadow seemed to have just laid down, but Arun suddenly stood up again. Sharp sword light shot out from his eyes. I didn't expect you to comprehend the essence of the sword so quickly. You're really a genius. With a thought from the shadow, a blurry message moved from the Calamity Sword and entered Chu Yang's mind. Chu Yang only felt a sharp pain in his brain. Then, there was something else in his mind. He forcefully endured the pain and looked carefully. He couldn't help but murmur. The sword is a weapon for killing. When the sword is out, it's killing and attacking. The sword is your defense. The sword is your block. Where the sword is pointed, it will go forward. The real Calamity Sword technique is killing. There is only killing. The real Calamity Sword technique is your sword moves. How can there be sword moves? There are only 4 moves. Now, I will teach you how to combine the 32 moves of the Calamity Sword technique into 4 moves. This is the move of the sword soul. Once you've comprehended the next level of Shu, you'll be invincible in this heaven imperial court. Chapter 1912. Chu Yang's body shook, and an extremely strong divine light shot out from his eyes. So, there really is. I didn't guess wrong. It turned out that after such a long time, almost 3 lifetimes, only then did I truly come into contact with the true essence of the Calamity Sword technique. The sword spirit, who had been following him, suddenly felt his body tremble. A voice suddenly rang out. To be more precise, it was the voice that suddenly rang out in his mind. You useless bastard, why aren't you practicing this set of sword technique? What are you waiting for? The sword spirit was stunned. This sword technique? What sword technique? The voice said with disappointment. I really want to find a female phoenix and stuff you into her, but to be remade. How could you be so stupid? Can you be any more stupid? Forget it, I'll do it myself. Then, the sword spirit felt his body involuntarily float out, holding the Tribulation Sword. From P. The light on the Tribulation Sword shone brightly again. A voice sounded in his mind. Remember this sword technique with your heart. Even if you can't remember it with all your might. Then, the sword spirit found that his body was dancing rapidly, as if he didn't have control over it. In Chu Yang's eyes, the sword spirit rushed out and grabbed the Tribulation Sword in an especially cool and pretentious posture. He even casually drew a dazzling sword flower. Then he stabbed out with the sword. Halfway through the stab, Chu Yang had already seen through it and couldn't help but be shocked. This move was obviously a single ray of cold light pierces 10,000 fathoms. But then it seemed to have changed. The moment the cold light was about to shoot out, the sword body shook. It actually changed into a sword blade that has been famous since ancient times. Then, it curved and became a blade that crosses the sky for 10,000 autumns. Then, it changed again. It became an iron wall and a copper wall that hasn't stopped fighting, a hidden light that hides the edge until the end of the night. Then, it became, I have the power of life and death in my hands, a big clump without a sharp edge, and finally, the sword light shook. It was as light as a dream floating. In the eyes of those who did not understand the Calamity Sword technique, the sword's trajectory was just a slow stab without any changes. It was not much different from an ordinary person's casual swing. But in Chu Yang's eyes, he could clearly see 8 consecutive stances of the Calamity Sword being displayed on this sword at the same time. The essence of the first 8 stances of the Calamity Sword technique was fused into this one move. It was just a simple wave, but it had already attracted Chu Yang's full attention. He was completely immersed in it. As far as the eye could see, there was nothing else. The next moment, the Calamity Sword's starting stance was about to change, and at the last moment, it suddenly stabbed out. The tip of the sword glowed. The sword was sharp and cold. The sword was hard. The sword was hidden, the hilt was palmed, the head of the sword was dangerous, and the tassel of the sword was floating. In this simple strike, the power of the Calamity Sword was fully displayed. Although it looked like a single sword strike, when it pierced out, wind and thunder surged soundlessly, and the sky changed color. The power of this sword was a perfect fusion of the 8 wonderful sword moves. It transformed into a single move. Or rather, it had become a sword. Just a sword. Chu Yang watched without blinking. His heart trembled and he felt relaxed and happy. His heart and soul were intoxicated, but he also understood what was going on. The sword intent contained in the first stance of each section of the sword could be connected so perfectly and become a transcendent sword strike that was enough to shock the world. The sword in the sword spirit's hand only pierced out horizontally, but where the tip of the sword pointed, wind and thunder suddenly surged. Thousands of sword auras appeared in the void in an inexplicable way, and each of them burst out from a completely different angle and power. And this was just one sword strike. Chu Yang was drenched in cold sweat. So, the true power of the Calamity Sword technique was actually this strong. This is the real, one ray of cold light pierces 10,000 fathoms, the sword spirit said calmly. The sword spirit's tone was very different from usual. In the past, when he spoke, there was always some flavor. Or rather, even though he was a sword spirit, he always had some human aura. But now, there was only calmness and indifference in what he said. It was a kind of calmness and indifference after experiencing the vicissitudes of life, and the world was no longer in his heart. Right now, Chu Yang was extremely agitated. In his carelessness, he actually didn't realize that the sword spirit's tone was very different from before. All of Chu Yang's attention was already attracted by this peerless sword strike, and he was in awe of it. There was no one and nothing else. This was one ray of cold light pierces 10,000 fathoms. When this ray of cold light first appeared, it could shatter mountains and rivers in an instant. It could destroy the world in the blink of an eye. The sword spirit's silhouette magically moved again. He retracted the tip of the sword and gently pulled it back. Suddenly, he held the sword horizontally in front of his chest and naturally formed a kind of awe-inspiring aura of a man who could hold back 10,000 men. In this still place, the sword suddenly pierced out. The speed of this sword strike was so fast that it was difficult to describe it with words. It was so fast that it could almost catch up with the passage of time. Chu Yang was watching from the side. He felt as if his scalp was about to explode. This sword move seems to have all its power in speed. But the power behind it is extremely long. It's mighty and unstoppable for thousands of miles. It was as if it wanted to slaughter the whole world in the long path of this sword strike, and not leave anything behind. This sword strike contained all the concepts of the entire second move of the 8-section sword technique, and it was perfectly integrated. It was another perfect integration of moves. When this sword strike was really released, its ferocious aura would then erupt to the extreme in the most ferocious way. Then, it even engulfed the entire space. Wherever the sword aura touched, it was all within its range of attack. This is the real, what's the harm in slaughtering the whole world, said the sword spirit indifferently. Chu Yang stared at it without blinking. He had already simulated this sword move thousands of times in his heart. He had clearly memorized the 8 sword moves by heart. However, he couldn't connect all the sword intents together, let alone merge them perfectly. Even he, who was the most familiar with the tribulation sword technique, couldn't do it. How did the sword spirit do it? When the sword strikes, it must kill. When the sword strikes, it must see blood. said the sword spirit indifferently. There must be surging killing intent in your heart. Only when you think of slaughtering the whole world can you unleash the true essence of this move. Next is the third move, after a long time. Chu Yang woke up from his daze. The sword spirit and the tribulation sword had already disappeared. The sword spirit returned to the tribulation space, and the tribulation sword also returned to Chu Yang's dantian. Chu Yang summoned and the tribulation sword was already in his hand. He calmed his heart and condensed his aura. He tried to slowly stab out the first sword strike. He kept thinking about the integration of the 8 sword intents. He seemed to have comprehended something, but also seemed to be confused. He didn't understand the main points. In fact, Chu Yang himself also knew that it was impossible to completely comprehend and master such a rare and peerless killing move in a short period of time. Therefore, he had already prepared himself for a long period of study. Without 3 to 5 years of grinding, it was simply wishful thinking for one to reach the heavens in a single bound with such an extraordinary sword move. But he was still a little unwilling. The integration of sword intents. Chu Yang exhaled softly. All his original guesses, all his predictions, all of his fantasies and fantasies, they were all in these 4 sword moves. They were all perfectly embodied. These 4 sword moves, or rather, for sword strikes, were really all-encompassing. Of course, it included the saber energy turns that Chu Yang had mentioned before. It also included the power of water and fire, the essence of heaven and earth, that Chu Yang had thought of before. It even included the hidden life force in absolute slaughter and death, and so on and so forth. These 4 sword moves were like a huge martial arts treasure trove. As far as the eye could see, it was all-encompassing and vast, and it was within reach. The only thing missing now was how to truly touch these 4 sword moves. As long as he could truly comprehend these 4 sword moves and use them as he wished, Chu Yang was confident that he would truly be invincible then. Now, I've at least learned the basics. I'll take it slow. Chu Yang sighed softly and put away the tribulation sword. Chu Yang, what were you doing just now? You didn't answer when I called you. What happened? Tai Budin walked over and asked curiously. Just now? I was practicing my sword. Chu Yang was rather puzzled. Someone was teaching me sword moves just now. Didn't you see anything? The sword spirit didn't avoid Tai Budin at all when he was practicing his sword moves just now. And it was so loud. But now that Tai Budin said so, there must be another reason. Practicing sword moves? Teaching sword moves? Tai Budin was rather amused. How can there be an outsider teaching you sword moves here? Isn't it just you and me here? You were standing there as punishment, but you were actually practicing your sword moves. How refreshing. Chu Yang was stunned. It was only now that Chu Yang realized that although Tai Budin was at the side, she didn't see anything at all when he was practicing his sword moves. Since when did the sword spirit become so powerful that he could control space so perfectly? He could let whoever he wanted to see it? He couldn't let whoever he didn't want to see it? This was too awesome, wasn't it? But didn't he just break through to the peak of saint level? He seemed to be only a little stronger than Lightning Snake and the others. And his foundation didn't seem very solid either. How could he be so powerful? Was it because of my breakthrough and he broke through again? Although the sword spirit was definitely not that powerful and there was someone else who was really powerful, Chu Yang was right about one thing. The sword spirit broke through again, and the extent of it was quite big. At the moment of Chu Yang's breakthrough, the few people related to Chu Yang also underwent earth-shaking changes at the same time. The first to sense it was undoubtedly the sword spirit. The growth of the sword spirit and the tribulation space followed Chu Yang's growth. It could be a little higher than Chu Yang's actual cultivation, but not by much. But now, as Chu Yang's cultivation rose to the peak of saint level, the tribulation space also expanded by dozens of times. As for the spiritual energy inside, it also became richer. The strength of the sword spirit, on the other hand, soared from the level of a saint to the level of a heavenly human. And then it stopped. Chapter 1913. It wasn't that he couldn't continue to improve, but because this level had already surpassed the sword spirit's cultivation when he was alive, and it was much, much more than that. The sword spirit was born in the Phoenix clan, and the highest level of cultivation was probably at the heavenly human level. There were no cultivators higher than that, and naturally, there were no cultivation techniques from the clan. Therefore, the sword spirit didn't seem to know how to cultivate in the future. The final result was that he was forced to stop. Before finding a new path, the sword spirit's cultivation would stagnate here. Update P, but this new path was likely to be harder than reaching the sky. Because in the history of the Phoenix clan, there had never been anyone who could surpass the heavenly human grade. There was a barren land in front of him. There wasn't even a road, let alone a smooth road. The other one who had an amazing improvement was Wang Dao. Previously, Wang Dao had coincidentally signed a master-servant contract with Chu Yang due to the one-step-to-heaven ascending pellet. As long as Chu Yang hadn't made a breakthrough, Wang Dao's killing intent would be limited to Chu Yang's current realm. Therefore, Yen Rushan had felt very sorry for Wang Dao's cultivation in the future because of Chu Yang's trash physique. But now, Chu Yang's cultivation had greatly improved due to the opportunity. It was tantamount to opening a gap in the sealed saber intent in his body. It came out with a whoosh. While Chu Yang was upgrading, Wang Dao was fighting with someone outside. He was originally at a disadvantage. Although his life might not be in danger, it was difficult to win. Unexpectedly, inexplicably, he became lively as if he had taken some medicine. He jumped from the early stage of the heaven grade to the high stage. With one slash, his cultivation directly reached the high stage of the heaven grade, breaking through in a battle. To be honest, it wasn't a rare thing. But breaking through in the same battle. The continuous breakthroughs of one small realm after another was quite shocking. It was almost a miracle that had been created since the ancient times. Wang Dao was confused about his own changes. He hadn't cultivated for long. If Yen Rushan was here, he would immediately understand that Chu Yang and Wang Dao had broken through. Wang Dao's real strength level always depended on Chu Yang's level. But no matter what, it was good to kill the enemy. In fact, Wang Dao hadn't accumulated much. If he had accumulated enough, he would have reached the saint grade and the heavenly human grade on purpose. Who was his master? His real cultivation was at least at the heavenly human grade. In every corner of the heavens and earth, Tribulation's brothers, who were scattered in all directions, also felt their spirits shake at the same time. Then, it seemed that some inexplicable energy had entered their bodies. All of a sudden, he was filled with a sense of confidence and pleasure. Everyone was already used to this kind of situation. Boss must have gotten out of some kind of crisis and gotten something good because of it. He had to say something worth saying. This was the first time something like this had happened in the Heaven Valley, so it was worth celebrating. It seems that Boss's progress is still far ahead of ours. Everyone had to continue working hard. Otherwise, they would only be able to watch Boss perform a one-man show when they fought the heavenly demon. But at the same time, he was finally relieved. That inexplicable feeling of farewell in the afternoon was really heart-wrenching. It must have been an illusion. In other words, something had happened to Boss. However, it was a good thing, a very, very good thing. Dreamlike veranda. Mo Qingwu jumped up, feeling very comfortable in her heart. I can feel that Chu Yang should be fine now. He scared me to death just now. Although Mo Qingwu didn't have a clear feeling, the sudden change from heartache to comfort made her feel very comfortable all over. She instinctively thought that Chu Yang had gotten out of the crisis. In a small house in Jiangnan, Zi Xiecheng also heaved a sigh of relief. Although she was still confused and didn't know what had happened, she finally didn't feel so confused anymore. In the Heavens continent, Yang Rulan had been feeling uneasy and restless. Now, she finally calmed down and didn't have trouble sleeping at night. In the lower three heavens palace, the young emperor heaved a long sigh of relief and murmured, "He's my father indeed. He's not so easy to pass away. Tian, we should go back too." Chu Yang smiled. Tai Budian nodded. He knew almost everything in the land of the divine source. At this moment, the tribulation godly spirit, who was hiding in the shadows, heaved a huge sigh of relief when he heard Chu Yang's words. Ancestor, you're finally leaving. Don't come back if you're leaving. Well, Elder, I'm leaving now. Please come out and have a chat with us. I've offended you with my careless words just now. I apologize to you here. Chu Yang greeted him casually. The tribulation godly spirit shrank back and made up his mind not to say anything. If you're tired of shouting, then get lost. I can't be bothered to entertain you. Have a chat? What can I have a chat with you? Even if you don't scold me, there won't be anything good in your words. It's not like I can't take your company. You'd better hurry up and leave. That's the best compensation for me. You're a living person. Even if you die, there will be someone to save you. I've been in the state of a ghost for so many years. I still want to live for a few more years. When he thought of this, he couldn't help but feel sorry for himself. It was rare for Chu Yang to have the opportunity to intimidate others, but he didn't expect this guy to refuse. He thought of how he was almost played to death by this guy in the morning. At that time, he seemed to have made a fool of himself. It was almost the biggest failure in his life. He felt indignant and said angrily, "If you don't come out, I won't leave. And then I'll call Shui Leihan in." "Don't, please don't." The tribulation godly spirit quickly came out, his face pale. "Little ancestor, do you have to torture me like this? Oomph." Chu Yang looked at this guy cautiously. He was still a little uncertain. Although his cultivation had improved, he was still not a match for this guy. That was for sure. Seeing that this guy was indeed scared and not faking it, he finally felt relieved. "Elder, why are you afraid of me? Is it because of that old man Shui Leihan?" Chu Yang asked curiously. Chu Yang was really puzzled and curious about this question. This matter was really a little strange. If it was only because of Shui Leihan, then it didn't seem to make sense. This guy originally still resented Shui Leihan. This? You're His Majesty's little brother. Of course, I don't dare to offend you. The tribulation godly spirit nodded and bowed. This didn't seem to make sense. With the improvement of his cultivation, Chu Yang's eyesight also improved greatly. Shui Leihan's strength was undoubtedly above the tribulation godly spirit. If the two of them fought head-on, the tribulation godly spirit would definitely lose. This was beyond doubt and very obvious. However, Chu Yang didn't believe that Shui Leihan could easily get rid of the tribulation godly spirit. The tribulation godly spirit was in a pure soul state. In this state, it was almost indestructible and had a long lifespan. It was almost unafraid of any tangible or intangible attacks in the world. Its own cultivation had already reached an extremely high level. Even if it was still a distance away from DE, it was definitely an expert of the same level. In other words, Shui Leihan could definitely win against the tribulation godly spirit, but he couldn't destroy it. The tribulation godly spirit was extremely afraid of Shui Leihan, probably because of his past prestige and the awe of the emperor. If Shui Leihan directly made it clear that he wanted to kill the tribulation godly spirit, the tribulation godly spirit would be forced to resist. The situation might not be so one-sided. Even if it was one-sided, the tribulation godly spirit still had a lot of means to escape unscathed. It couldn't win in a fight, but it could definitely escape. Chu Yang frowned and said, "There should be other reasons, right?" The tribulation godly spirit stammered and hesitated, not knowing what to say. Then, it heard a voice in its mind. "How dare you betray me? I'll let you scream for 810,000 years before you die. Do you want to try?" The tribulation godly spirit yelled, "I don't dare." Chu Yang frowned. "Don't dare? What don't you dare to do?" The tribulation godly spirit was so anxious that he was sweating on his forehead. "I mean, I don't dare to offend you. Or you're so blessed, so handsome, so chivalrous, so courageous, so benevolent and righteous, and so loyal. You definitely won't make things difficult for me." Chu Yang looked at him from the corner of his eyes. Why did he feel that this guy wasn't being honest? Although what he said was the truth and was very easy to listen to, Chu Yang still felt a little dissatisfied. That gaze made the tribulation godly spirit feel uneasy, as if there was a thorn in his back. He kept feeling that this little gaze was up to no good. "I've already complimented you so much, why are you still not satisfied?" Well, since Elder thinks so highly of me. Chu Yang's eyes turned. You're not of much use here, and you're also lonely, empty and cold. Why don't you follow me out to make a living? The outside world is very beautiful. Follow you out to make a living? The tribulation godly spirit was instantly stunned when he heard this suggestion. If I really follow you out to make a living, won't I fall into the hands of that powerful existence? I'll be shrouded in the most terrifying threat at all times. If that's the case, then will I still be able to live in the future? Thinking of this, he couldn't help but shudder. I still prefer to stay here alone. I'd better stay here. I see. In that case, I won't force you. Chu Yang nodded understandingly. Speaking of which, Chu Yang's sudden idea of incorporating this guy was purely on a whim. Thinking about it, he also felt that it was unrealistic. His appetite seemed a little too big, too whimsical. Even though he was only a soul tribulation, he was still a peerless powerhouse comparable to a saint. Even though he had improved, he was still only at the pinnacle of the saint realm. To think that he wanted to recruit such a peerless powerhouse, it was a bit like a fool's dream. So he didn't say anything else. He nodded and said, "In that case, I'll take my leave." After he finished speaking, he pulled Tai Budian into the tribulation space and controlled the space to float out. He thought to himself, "We'll meet again. I'll come to this place again. The next time I come, I'll make you suffer. So many experts will fight with you at the same time. Can I do you a favor then?" Chapter 1914. Come often when you're free. The divine spirit subconsciously slapped ZJ hard on the face before he could finish his sentence. This slap was so forceful that ZJ's head was smashed into pieces and turned into a puff of black smoke. For such a jinx, it would be best if he didn't come again. It would be best if he never came again. Why did ZJ invite him to come often just now? What a cheap mouth. Seeing Chu Yang float out, the soul of the calamity smacked its lips and let out a relieved sigh. Novel chapters are the fastest to update. It was also a little lonely in this quiet space. Then he started to lament. It's a pity that half of the spiritual energy in this space has been sucked away. It'll take a long time to recover. Urun was stunned. After a while, he knocked on ZJ's head with a pa sound and smashed his head into pieces. I'm really stupid. I'm really stupid. The divine spirit shouted and chased after Chu Yang. Little ancestor, come back. I'm willing to go out with you. I'm willing, but Chu Yang had already left. He definitely couldn't hear him now. Looking at the pitch-black tunnel, Calamity's soul sat on the ground. I'm such an idiot. Everything that Lord Fiend said was right. Sigh, if I go out with this little lord, won't I become a family with that powerful existence? Not to mention other things, since we're a family he won't torture me anymore, right? Even if he does, he'll definitely show mercy. Besides, I have the East Emperor Jun Shui Leihan as my backer. That's equivalent to having both the good and the bad. Also, this little ancestor's identity is extremely mysterious. He's so powerful at such a young age. How can I be wrong to follow him in the future? When he's really powerful in the future, he won't treat me badly. Moreover, they can live openly in broad daylight. The more the divine spirit thought about it, the more regretful he felt. He couldn't help but give ZJ a tight slap. You actually rejected such a good opportunity. I'll beat you to death. Sigh, the heads kept gathering and dispersing as if they were playing a game. I wonder if that little duke is still coming? Calamity's soul sat on the ground and looked up at the crack in a daze. There was actually a hint of anxiousness in his eyes. It's done. Please do it again. I beg you, please come in again. You don't need to invite me, I'll give myself to you. What a great opportunity. How could I let him go? Yes. If not, can I go out and look for him? Jianan's divine soul quickly chased after it, but when it reached the top of the mountain, a sword chi pierced through its body. When he looked at the script, he saw a shining long sword above his head. It emitted a cold light. One sword. It actually pierced through ZJ's body. This sword actually possessed this ability as well. With this sword here, there was no way that ZJ would be able to escape. Wah! The soul of the calamity pounded its chest and stamped its feet, wailing loudly. Chu Yang and Tai Budian floated out of the tribulation space and saw Wang Dao fighting endlessly not far away. After his cultivation had increased greatly, Wang Dao's murderous nature was fully stimulated. The aura of the knife-killing god filled Wang Dao with the desire to fight. This guy, who had always been passive, actually began to take the initiative to provoke others. There was a fierce battle on the top of the mountain. The momentum was earth-shattering. At this moment, Wang Dao was besieged and in a bitter battle. Even though his cultivation base had increased greatly, he was still able to escape. Although his cultivation had increased greatly, he could only parry and had no power to fight back. "Let's go." Chu Yang smiled. "Aren't you going to help him?" Tai Budian said worriedly, "He's being besieged now. The situation is not good. Some roads need to be taken by him." Chu Yang smiled faintly. "Can I help him for the rest of his life?" The two slowly floated down. Slowly, they reached the foot of the mountain. Tai Budian leaned against Chu Yang in the tribulation space and said lightly, "Chu Yang, this tribulation space is really a great weapon for sneak attacks." Chu Yang nodded. "Yes, in a sense, it does have a heaven-defying effect of winning by surprise." Tai Budian said calmly, "That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm saying is that this effect will brew into a form of reliance. After you get used to the tribulation realm, you'll have a form of reliance, or rather, you'll never be magnanimous enough. That kind of open and above-board battle, that kind of aura of looking down on the world, that kind of heroic spirit of fighting alone." Tai Budian looked deeply at Chu Yang. "In the future, you will eventually have to fight against the extraterrestrial demons. Such a sneak attack will never be presentable in a large-scale battle." Chu Yang was horrified and moved. He said, "Yes, at least in terms of aura, I'm weaker." Tai Budian smiled sweetly. Leaning on his shoulder, she said, "Chu Yang, I want to walk openly under the sun with you and let everyone in the world see our happiness. I want them to be envious and jealous of us." Chu Yang laughed. "Now, let everyone who sees us be envious of me for having such a peerless beauty. What's the harm in that?" Tai Budian pursed her lips and smiled, her eyes sparkling. Chu Yang was intoxicated by her elegance at this moment. At a certain moment when no one was paying attention to them, Chu Yang and Tai Budian both appeared on an empty piece of land. Tai Budian had changed into a white robe. Her hair was like the clouds, her eyes were like phoenixes, her nose was like jade, her cheeks were rosy, and her small diamond-shaped lips were as if painted red. She was graceful and magnanimous, just like a fairy who had descended to the mortal world. That faint majesty of an emperor was only faintly attached to her body now, but it gave everyone who saw her the feeling of a sovereign descending to the world. She was peerless and peerless. Chu Yang was still dressed in black. Walking beside Tai Budian, who was dressed in white and black, they didn't seem to contradict each other at all. They were actually in perfect harmony. It gave one the subtle feeling of, these two are practically a match made in heaven. The two of them walked slowly, just like that from the foot of the infinite boundless mountain where the flames of war raged. Their robes fluttered as they walked, seeming to be moving slowly but actually moving quickly. Along the way, many people saw the two of them. They couldn't help but stop in their tracks and watch. The man was tall and handsome, his body tall and straight, his brows brimming with heroic spirit. It was as if he wanted to test his sword against the world. An unparalleled sharpness, as if he wanted to sweep through the mountains and ravines and intimidate all the heroes of the world. The woman was peerless and beautiful, her bearing graceful. Although her figure was delicate and graceful, she was graceful and graceful. However, he naturally had the aura of an emperor who held supreme power and looked down upon the world. Everyone who saw the two of them would involuntarily have the same thought in their hearts. My whole life. This is the first time I've seen the two of them like this. Along the way, no one spoke. Everyone just watched in a daze. Chu Yang and Tai Budian walked past just like that. Tai Butian's face was full of bliss as she followed beside Chu Yang. She was half a step behind him. After such a long time. This seemed to be the first time she was appearing in public beside her lover. This kind of comfort of being in broad daylight made Tai Butin feel extremely blissful. It was as if Chu Yang was announcing to the whole world, "This is my woman. This is where I belong." Tai Butin thought blissfully. In the past, perhaps she was still a little uncertain, a little worried about her gains and losses, and a little conflicted in her heart. But after going through life and death together this time, everything had gone with the wind, no longer lingering in her heart. Tai Butin dared to announce to the whole world, "This is my man." The two of them left in an instant, their robes fluttering, leaving behind only comments of admiration. "Who is that? What a great presence! That gaze is completely different from sword aura. It's definitely not ordinary. I say, that woman is really beautiful, like a fairy. It's the first time I, Li Erniu, have seen such a beauty. Yes, it's also the first time I, Guan Yueju, have seen such a beautiful woman. Ouch, my saliva. I, Guan Yueju, am too useless. How can I, Guan Yueju, be such a hooligan? She's really too beautiful." The two of them went all the way to the city. But halfway there, they met a group of people. When the two sides met, the hundreds of people opposite them were all stunned and tongue-tied. Chu Yang stopped and looked up with a smile. "Everyone, how have you been?" Opposite him was Yun Tian, Xue Xian and the rest. "Chu Yang?" When Xue Xian and the rest saw that Chu Yang actually appeared here alive, all of them revealed an expression as if they had seen a ghost. Everyone had witnessed Chu Yang's last move, and he had died a heroic death. His death had been witnessed by everyone, and he couldn't be any more dead. His heart had been severely injured, his primary energy had been exhausted, and his life force and soul force had been depleted. All of this could only mean one thing: Chu Yang was dead for sure. It wasn't that he was dead for sure, but he was completely dead. While everyone was shocked, they couldn't help but feel pity in their hearts. Such a good young man, who had mediated between many forces in the eastern royal heavens, was neither servile nor overbearing, and had even made a fortune. However, the world was unpredictable. Because of the sudden change of events, he was surrounded by death and was forced into a desperate situation, dying just like that. Although he had taken his revenge, and it could be said that he had died a worthy death, there was still the regret of his unfulfilled ambitions previously, when the white-robed man suddenly appeared and took away Chu Yang and Tai Butian's corpses. Although Xue Xian and the rest were shocked by his strength, they still didn't believe that he had the ability to steal the sky and bring the sun back from the dead. Because of this, everyone gathered together to do some research. The content of the research was naturally none other than Chu Yang's violent eruption this time, and whether Chu Yang had the ability to come back to life. Everyone agreed that although this move could infinitely increase one's battle prowess and allow all enemies to kill freely, it definitely couldn't be replicated. In other words, this move required the user to use all of his life as the price. And Yuan Shetu snatched Chu Yang's woman and forced Chu Yang to such a state. Chu Yang had no choice but to die together with Yuan Shetu. In the end, although Yuan Shetu died first, Chu Yang definitely wouldn't be able to survive. If Chu Yang could still come back to life after using this move, wouldn't this move be invincible? Chapter 1915. Faced with such a move, the old monsters were both envious and fearful, but they also avoided it. If this technique was mastered by ZJ, once there was a crisis, all they needed to do was sacrifice one of the higher-ups and they could slaughter all the enemies. How good would that be? Of course, it would be best if that higher-up was not ZJ. This was actually very easy to solve. Any large sect would have no lack of death warriors. As long as the sect's death warriors cultivated this technique, wouldn't it be a match made in heaven? Everything would go smoothly, but now that Chu Yang is dead, this move has been obliterated from heaven and earth. Regarding this, everyone sighed regretfully. As for what the white-robed man said, everyone naturally had their doubts at first. They suspected that the white-robed man really had a miraculous technique that could bring Chu Yang back to life. However, Wu Zhangxiu's brainless words completely dispelled everyone's doubts. I say, everyone, Is there a problem with your comprehension ability? And Immortal, the them I'm talking about does not include you. Your comprehension ability is definitely not a problem. Look, I'm talking about all of you. That white-robed man did not seem to say that Chu Yang was not dead. Perhaps he could save Chu Yang, right? His original words were, everyone should go back early. And, help me inform everyone that tonight's auction will be changed to tomorrow night. All the rules will remain the same. Isn't that right? Then how can Chu Yang not be dead? Does the auction have to be hosted by Chu Yang? Can't someone else be the host? Previously, the host of the Chu clan was indeed Chu Yang, but no one could confirm it. There must be someone behind Chu Yang. Perhaps the white-clothed man was Chu Yang's backer. He had to come out and explain. Isn't it logical to appoint someone else to preside over the auction? When everyone heard Wu Zhangxiu's argument, they suddenly understood. Wasn't that right? From the beginning to the end, that white-robed man really did mention that the auction would still be hosted by Chu Yang. He only said that the auction would continue. Everyone could not help but sweat. Could it be that even a fool thinks 1,000 times? Must one win? We were actually defeated by that boorish Wu Zhangxiu. How shameful! But that person also said something else. Who said he's dead? Shui Xian retorted sarcastically. Can't this prove that Chu Yang is still alive? So, then this move. Wu Zhangxiu was suddenly put on the spot. But, who said he's dead? But he didn't say that he was still alive. Under the watchful eyes of so many people, could it be that everyone can't even differentiate between the living and the dead? Let's wait for the news from the auction. Shui Xian snorted. You'll be able to wait until the end of the world. He swaggered off. Everyone was dumbfounded. If we just wait for the news, what's the point of discussing? Everyone shook their heads and discussed the details. Then, they left Emo Yuntian's camp together. Chu Yang had previously told him about the auction of Emo Yuntian's people. Even though Chu Yang had died, this statement was still accepted by everyone. One more sect in Bijianji meant one more competitor. Only Emo Yuntian was left behind. The people from the other two sects were dumbstruck. Yuan Shitu was dead. To them, this result was like the sky had collapsed. Apart from Emo Yuntian's leading figure of the younger generation and Ghost Tribe's core disciple, Yuan Shitu had a third identity. Others might not know the other identity of Yuan Shitu, and it was the most important identity. But how could they, the locals, not know? Once Yuan Shitu died. Although they were still alive, their lives were starting to count down. And it was Emo Yuntian who didn't dare to go back. From then on, she could only live the life of a wandering ghost. Everyone only sympathized with and gloated over these people's misfortune. There was no pity at all. Yun Tian also had the thought of taking this opportunity to recruit these people. But after thinking about it, he decided to give up. If that terrifying existence took its anger out on ZJ in the end, although ZJ might not be afraid, it would still be a huge trouble. It was better not to get involved in such trouble. So, although he felt that it was a pity, Yun Tian still gave up. Everyone's mood was heavy all the way. Although Wu Zhangxiu broke the stalemate just now, the auction could still be held even if Chu Yang was dead. That white-robed man also said that the auction would be postponed for a day and everything would go on as usual. But what would happen a day later? However, no one was able to guarantee it. Everyone thought of many questions, but there was one thing that everyone was sure of, and that was to see the couple, Chu Yang and Tai Butian, who were clearly dead, actually appear in front of the government alive and well. And their clothes were fresh and they were not injured at all. This time, everyone was speechless. If it wasn't in broad daylight, everyone would have thought that ZJ had seen a ghost. Chu Yang? You're not dead? Shui Xian's mind was blank. She subconsciously asked a super stupid question. Yes, I'm very lucky. Chu Yang smiled faintly. He looked straight at the more than 30 heavenly human experts in front of him. His voice was elegant. Everyone, you're not very disappointed, right? As soon as he said this, everyone's expression changed. This sentence was unbearable for everyone. And it was said by a junior like Chu Yang. Everyone's face was burning. One of them said angrily, Chu Yang, what do you mean by that? What does it have to do with us whether you're dead or not? Of course it has nothing to do with you. You want to talk nonsense with me? Chu Yang smiled and said, however, the martial world has its own strength of character. The martial world has its own ambition and rules. The martial world has its own morals. Since the current Jianghu has changed, who is going to redefine the morality of Jianghu? Justice is not in the hearts of the people? Is it hard to distinguish between black and white? From the looks of it, I, Chu Yang, still have to live. Chu Yang's voice was full of naked sarcasm. His eyes were also full of undisguised provocation. His last words were also filled with a sense of taking the world as his responsibility. Chu Yang's character had always been cautious. He rarely provoked people like this. He always planned before taking action. But yesterday, Yuan Shu Lu used his power to snatch a woman and violated a great taboo in the martial world. However, out of so many experts, one of them had actually stepped forward to speak up for them. He could only watch from the sidelines. This was the bottom line of the martial world. There were things to do and things not to do, but there were also things to do. This made Chu Yang's heart turn cold. Chu Yang asked himself, if he saw this situation, he would definitely not hesitate to draw his sword and attack. But these people in front of him, each of them had earth-shattering cultivation. They were indifferent to this matter. Chu Yang looked down on such people from the bottom of his heart. If a person abandoned his life's creed and betrayed the bottom line of his heart because of fear of power, what could he do even if his cultivation was high? Chu Yang, you need to be careful. Some words can't be said carelessly. A black-bearded elder stood up and looked coldly at Chu Yang. You must know that trouble comes from the mouth. Chu Yang raised his head, his gaze like a sword. What? Am I wrong? Are you going to teach me a lesson? The black-bearded elder was speechless. Teach Chu Yang a lesson? He really didn't have the guts now. Chu Yang's cultivation was naturally not as good as his, but Chu Yang had desperate means. Once Chu Yang went all out, it was hard to say whether Chu Yang would die or not, but ZJ would definitely die. The last few experts who died in Mo Yuntian, which one of them wasn't stronger than ZJ? Didn't they still have no power to fight back under Chu Yang's sword? Especially when the person who should have died from Weijianji came back alive and kicking. Using ZJ to bet that he wouldn't die. Maybe someone would do this kind of thing, but the person who would do it would definitely not be ZJ. Chu Yang laughed loudly. I've finally done something. Now that I've experienced it personally, I can't help but do it. Something? Shuexian couldn't help but ask. I've finally done it today. Why did the heavenly emperor of purple firmament fail to resist the heavenly demon? Chu Yang laughed wildly. I believe that even if things were to happen again, the heavenly emperor of purple firmament would still fail. Everyone sweeps the snow in front of their own door, not caring about the frost on the roof of others. Keeping one's nose clean and watching from the sidelines is a wise move. This is the way to longevity. The righteousness of the martial world is just bullshit, huh? Chu Yang let out a long laugh and led Tai Budian away. Only that mocking laughter reverberated between heaven and earth. Everyone couldn't help but blush. Especially those who claimed to be chivalrous, they lowered their heads even more. They also often helped out when they saw injustice on the road and often helped the weak. But today, facing the special identity of Yuan Shu too, they were really timid. From this point of view, Chu Yang's scolding wasn't wrong at all. Chu Yang and Shuexian walked towards the setting sun, leaving behind a long shadow. Their shadows were also nestled together. Facing this world, Chu Yang no longer had any fear. He said softly, there is true love in the world, and righteousness collapses. Since you can collapse, I, Chu Yang, can rebuild. At least with me, friendship and righteousness still exist in my heart. Let's see if this world will destroy my righteousness, or if I will become a clear stream in the chaotic world. A pillar of strength. Hearing Chu Yang's mocking laughter, Shuexian blushed. When the heavenly emperor of purple clouds, Zihao, died in battle back then, almost all the major sects contributed. Or rather, it should be said that the sects that existed didn't contribute. And Dreamlike Veranda happened to be one of the sects that existed back then and was still prosperous now. Everyone was embarrassed and angry. Someone scolded, "Shit?" We naturally had our own considerations for what happened back then. What? Shit? It's his turn to teach us a lesson? What kind of shit is Chu Yang? If the extraterrestrial demons attack, will Chu Yang really dare to fight? Yun Tian said lightly, "I don't care about others, and I have no right to say. But if the extraterrestrial demons attack, Chu Yang will definitely fight. This I can guarantee." Yun Tian's identity was not to be underestimated. When he said this, although many people were dissatisfied, no one refuted. Chapter 1916. Young Master, please bring a few more people with you, a Heavenly Sword Alliance expert called out. No need. Yun Tian went far away. If Chu Yang wants to kill me, how many people do I need to bring to ensure my safety? Before he finished speaking, he had already disappeared. These words caused everyone to feel a wave of emotions. Yes, if Chu Yang really went berserk and used that move again with the number of people in front of them, no matter how many people Yun Tian brought, it wouldn't be enough to kill them. If he didn't attack at all, what harm was there in Yun Tian being alone? Mo Lu and Zi Huang looked at each other and saw the complicated look in each other's eyes. It turned out that Yun Tian was no longer the strongest opponent of China. Chu Yang was everyone's strongest enemy. But could China really fight against such an enemy? Chu Yang and Tai Butyin walked past them as if there was no one around. Yun Tian called out from behind, "Brother Chu, please wait a moment." Chu Yang ignored him completely. "What the fuck did you hear?" He continued to walk slowly. With a swoosh, Yun Tian used his movement technique and chased after him. He smiled bitterly and said, "Brother Chu's battle today shook the world and shocked the entire imperial court. But you don't have to ignore an old friend like this." Chu Yang smiled. "Old friend? When have I ever had an old friend in imperial court? I waited for you and you still caught up. I didn't wait for you and you still caught up. What's the difference between me waiting for you and not waiting for you?" Yun Tian laughed. "Not bad, not bad." As he spoke, he looked at Tai Butyin and said, "This is sister-in-law, right? You're indeed an outstanding beauty. No wonder Brother Chu treasures you so much and doesn't hesitate to fly into a rage," he said flatteringly. But his eyes kept on sizing her up. He was even more shocked. Because on Tai Butian's body, there was an aura that Yun Tian was very familiar with. Or rather, it was a very familiar aura. The aura of an emperor. The aura of an emperor that could control the world. Who was this woman? How could she have such an aura on her? And it was so strong. Such a rich aura of an emperor. It was really unbelievable. Yun Tianxin racked her brains, but she had no idea what to do. Tai Butyin smiled and said, "You flatter me." She was once the sovereign of the world. She was practically the ruler of a plane. What Yun Tian could sense, she was also sensitive enough to sense. Although Yun Tian was trying his best to hide his intentions, she was still able to sense that he was the ruler of a plane. However, she could sense a familiar and dangerous aura from this person. The concealed aura was the aura of a ruler, the aura of a ruler that only an emperor could possess. This was Tai Butian's first time seeing Yun Tian face to face. This feeling was especially strong. He couldn't help but become wary. This person's kingly aura is natural. Why do I have to cover up? What if he had other motives? What if he had other motives? This person was the young master of the Sky Sword Alliance, the leader of the Extreme Sky's younger generation. However, why did he have the aura of a king? Who exactly was this person? Or perhaps, other than the two identities of the Extreme Sky Youth Leader and the Sky Sword Alliance's young master, there are other identities? An identity that was even more important than the other two identities. In fact, compared to Yun Tian's doubts, Yun Tian's heart was filled with questions. Tai Butyin had the same doubts about another person, Yuan Shetu. Although Yuan Shetu was dead now, there were still doubts about him. Speaking of which, Yuan Shetu's identity was similar to Yun Tian's. They were both leaders of the younger generation in the Heavenly Imperial Court and also the core disciples of the same sect. Chu Yang had a very high opinion of Yun Tian. Even the other two heavenly imperial court's young leaders, Zi Huang and Mo Lu, were also relatively high in Chu Yang's opinion. However, Yuan Sheta's intelligence was not outstanding. He even lacked the basic forbearance and personality. The way he handled things was even worse. No matter how one looked at it, he was far inferior to Yun Tian and the other two. For such a person to become the leader of Mo Yuntian's younger generation, wasn't it strange? If one wanted to completely rationalize this matter, there seemed to be only one explanation. Yuan Shetu still had a third identity, an identity that was even more important than the previous two identities. Tai Butian's thoughts were thousands of thoughts. She organized her thoughts and cleared her head. However, Chu Yang and Yun Tian were still talking. "Brother Yun, you must have something to say to me." Chu Yang smiled and walked forward. The two talked as they walked. "I don't dare to say that I have something to say to you. Brother Chu, I'm here to make a deal with you." Yun Tian smiled. "A deal with great benefits? I'm afraid it's not convenient to talk about it here." Chu Yang looked at him indifferently and said, "Let's talk about it when we get back. Right now, my Chu clan's courtyard must be in a mess. Let's clean up the mess first and then talk to Brother Yun in detail. All right, my family might still think that something bad has happened to me. It's more important to quickly go back and calm everyone down." Of course. I'll go with Brother Chu." Yun Tian agreed immediately. When Chu Yang returned to the entrance of the Chu clan's courtyard, he immediately caused a commotion. Wu Qianqian screamed and pounced on him, hugging him tightly. She refused to let go no matter what, for fear of losing him again. Previously, she already felt uneasy. After hearing that Chu Yang was dead, Wu Qianqian was stunned on the spot. She only felt muddle-headed and confused. There was only one thought in her mind. If he's really dead, I'll go find him. I'll go accompany him. Once the news was confirmed, Wu Qianqian would immediately disappear from this world. She didn't expect that Chu Yang and Tai Butian would come back safe and sound before the definite news came over. Wu Qianqian was overjoyed. The boundless haze in her heart instantly disappeared. She was simply indescribably excited. As long as he was fine, nothing else mattered. The Chu clan's courtyard was still in a mess. Huyen Aobua and the others were directing people to clean up the mess. They were obviously a little absent-minded as they waited for Chu Yang's news. How could they not know that the enemy this time was ridiculously strong? But they were used to Chu Yang's miracles. Although they were worried, they firmly believed that Chu Yang could create another legend. But just on this point, they were more confident than Wu Qianqian and Mo Qingwu. And Chu Yang's return was to continue the legend. As soon as he returned, the Chu clan's courtyard burst into cheers. The originally lifeless courtyard suddenly became lively. Even Lightning Snake and the others who were recuperating showed sincere smiles. It seemed that with Chu Yang's return, everyone had a backbone. And they had confidence. No matter how big the difficulty was, as long as Chu Yang was around, they wouldn't be able to overcome it. After comforting Wu Qianqian, Tai Butian accompanied Wu Qianqian in. Chu Yang greeted the others and said a few words. Then he brought Yun Tian to the study. "I wonder what kind of deal it is? What made Brother Yun so anxious?" Chu Yang asked. "It's not really a deal with me, but it may not be so for Brother Chu. Speaking of which, it's actually not a deal. I'm just telling Brother Chu a piece of news, a very important piece of news." Yun Tian said sincerely, "I want to gain Brother Chu's friendship, that's all." Chu Yang smiled. "Friendship?" Yun Tian frowned and said, "Brother Yun, why do you think Yuan Shu Lu came to find trouble with me? And he came to snatch my woman so brazenly?" Yun Tian's expression didn't change. He laughed and said, "I don't know about this." Chu Yang smiled and said, "I can understand Brother Yun's reluctance. Then all this can only be understood as Yuan Shu Lu being blinded by lust. However, Brother Yun thought that I was an enemy at that time. But it seems that Yuan Shu Lu doesn't have such ability, or at least your eyesight." What Tai Butian thought of, Chu Yang also thought of. The trouble caused by Yuan Shu Lu might not end because of Yuan Shu Lu's death. So far, it was just the beginning. Yun Tian obviously understood Yuan Shu Lu very well. Now that he had the chance, he naturally wanted to test it out. Yun Tian said cautiously, maybe. He secretly became vigilant in his heart. Chu Yang had become suspicious of him. Chu Yang looked at him with a smile that was not a smile. This kind of meaningful gaze lasted for a long time. Let's talk. Yun Tian only felt uncomfortable all over. If it wasn't for his extraordinary self-control, he would have given himself away on the spot. Chu Yang finally opened his mouth. Brother Yun, I wonder what kind of news you want to tell me? Yun Tian took a breath and said, this news may not be worth mentioning to others, but to Brother Chu, it's a matter of life and death. Chu Yang raised his eyebrows and said, oh? Yun Tian said lightly, Brother Chu, do you know that Yuan Shu Lu is from Shmi? Chu Yang's eyes narrowed. He's from Shmi. Yun Tian said lightly, Yuan Shu Lu, other than being a core disciple of the demon ghost, is also the heavenly emperor of Mo Yun Heaven, Yuan Tianji. Yuan Tianji is famous among the great heavenly emperors for seeking revenge for the smallest grievance. And Yuan Shu Lu is his youngest son. Tai Yuan Shu Lu is also the son that the heavenly emperor of Mo Yun Heaven dotes on the most. Chu Yang's eyebrows slightly knitted together. Then he raised his eyebrows and said with a smile, I see. His background is really not small. No wonder he's so arrogant. No wonder he can become a core disciple of the demon ghost. He's actually the leader of Mo Yun Heaven's younger generation. So this is the reason. The biggest doubt in Chu Yang's heart was finally solved. Yuan Shu Lu was indeed not simple. However, Chu Yang was still fearless. He had already died twice. Why would he be afraid of Shmi? Heavenly Emperor? So what if he's a heavenly emperor? Can he make me die 80 times? Yun Tian looked at him carefully and couldn't help but admire him sincerely. Brother Chu, you're actually not worried at all? This calmness and composure really makes me admire you. Chu Yang snorted and sneered. What's the use of worrying and being afraid? If Yuan Shu Lu doesn't die, I'll definitely die. It's better for him to die than for me to die. Yuan Shu Lu's death will definitely attract powerful enemies for me. I'm already mentally prepared for this. With my foundation, I'm afraid that even the demon ghost can't provoke me, let alone the heavenly emperor of Mo Yun Heaven. Anyway, I can't afford to offend him, so there's no need to worry and be afraid. Chapter 1917. Yun Tian laughed and lowered his voice. Brother Chu, do you think it's appropriate to start the transaction of heavenly treasures now? Chu Yang frowned and looked at Yun Tian for a while. Then he said slowly, let's wait until after the auction tomorrow. How about it? Yun Tian was overjoyed. Deal. Then he reminded Chu Yang worriedly, I want the materials from that day. Chu Yang nodded. That white jade screen is definitely not a problem. Novel chapters are updated very quickly. As he spoke, Chu Yang winked. Yun Tian was stunned when he saw Chu Yang blinking. Then he laughed. Not bad, not bad. It's that white jade screen. Such a treasure is really rare. Huh. Then he winked at Chu Yang too. Both of them looked at each other and laughed. All of them had a tacit understanding and laughed at the same time. Brother Yun, Mo Yun Tian, 3 sects came this time. The people from the ghost clan are all dead. That heavenly emperor is also dead. How are the people from the other 2 sects reacting? Chu Yang asked casually. Yun Tian's face twitched. Will they have any reaction? It doesn't concern them. Chu Yang smiled. I'm afraid it won't be so simple. If Yuan Shida's identity is just the direct disciple of the ghost clan, even with that young leader, this matter has nothing to do with them. They might even be happy to see it happen. But the reality is that Yuan Shitu is the son of heavenly emperor Mo Yun. Then, there's a big connection. Yun Tian was silent for a while. Brother Chu, you mean, you want to recruit them? Chu Yang asked, can they still go back? Wait for death here or go back to die? Yun Tian heaved a sigh of relief. That's right. But they might not be meritorious. Maybe they have other choices. Chu Yang said mockingly, other choices? Do you dare to take them in? Yun Tian smiled bitterly. I don't dare. Then it settled. Chu Yang leaned back and crossed his legs. Brother Yun, you don't dare. Who else dares? Now, other than me, who else can they rely on? Only by relying on me can you have a chance to survive, right? Since ancient times, the hardest thing is death. Just as Chu Yang and Yun Tian were conversing, a figure flew past in the distant horizon at high speed. Yen Russian exuded a ruthless aura. He rushed straight into the empty tent. Great Deacon Yen, please wait. Scram! Yen Russian bellowed. Then he lifted the curtain and rushed in. What's going on? General Lon furrowed his eyebrows as he looked at Yen Russian, who seemed to be very agitated. What was wrong with him? Why are you so excited today? This was not like his usual self. General Lon. Yen Russian didn't even greet him. He shouted, Why didn't you go and rescue my brother? General Lon narrowed his eyes. Rescue your brother? What does the vendetta of the Jianghu have to do with us? How can we dispatch troops without any justification? Yen Russian raised his voice. Are you sure you don't have a valid reason? Could it be that Yuan Shu had barged into a private house? Kidnapping women. Are these also considered vendettas in the pugilistic world? How dare you? General Lon was enraged. Are you lecturing me? Yen Russian stiffened his neck. I don't dare to. I just want an explanation. Why was I sent out when the incident happened? And the moment I left, something happened to my brother. Is this considered shameful? Isn't this too much of a coincidence? Great General Lon flew into a rage and kicked the table over. You bastard, what you mean is that I've already discussed it with Mo Yuntian's people. I deliberately sent you away to coordinate with them? Yen Russian said coldly, I didn't say that. But I thought that. If I was here, I believe that Yuan Shu wouldn't have been so arrogant. General Lon sneered and pointed at the door. Scram. Yen Russian gritted his teeth. Shameful? If we, the people of the Eastern Imperial Clan, can't even protect an ordinary girl from the Eastern Imperial Clan, do the commoners still have faith in the Eastern Imperial Clan? The commoners provide us with food and clothing. Is this how we protect them? Drag him out of here. General Lon was furious. He ignored Yen Russian and ordered his men to carry out his orders. Damn it, I also want to ask you a question. Great General Lon, do you feel comfortable watching the people of the Ghost Domain running amok in our Eastern Royal Heaven? Yen Russian was dragged out by 2 guards, but he was still shouting loudly. Great General Lon, do you feel comfortable watching the people of the Ghost Domain running amok in our Eastern Royal Heaven? Scram. Scram. General Lon rushed out angrily. Seeing that Yen Russian was about to be dragged out of the tent, he took off one of his boots and threw it at him. Damn it, do you think I don't want to interfere? Do you think I don't want to stop you? General Lon scolded. If it wasn't for His Majesty's decree, I would have cut that Yuan Shu into 17 or 18 pieces. Is the land of the Celestial the Arch very impressive? This is the Eastern Royal Heavens. No matter how powerful he is, he can't control the Eastern Royal Heavens. Just as he was venting his anger, someone rushed in. General, Chu Yang is not dead. Not dead? General Lon was shocked. What happened? Tell me in detail. After Renji finished listening to the report, General Lon burst into laughter. Pa, damn it, he's not dead. If that's the case, men, bring Yen Russian in. How dare he scold me and leave me speechless? Let's see if I can't teach him a lesson this time. How dare you? Not long after, Yen Russian stood in the tent again. He was confused. According to the latest news, your brother is not dead. He's still alive and kicking, General Lon said slowly. He's not dead? Yen Russian was shocked and delighted. Is the news accurate? That's great. That's great. It's confirmed that a mysterious expert came to his rescue. General Lon guessed that the mysterious expert was most likely His Majesty. However, he didn't have any evidence and didn't dare to say anything. It's good that he's not dead. Yen Russian turned and walked out. I'll go and see him. Wait. General Lon dragged his words. You want to leave just like that? What are you thinking? You scolded me just now, did you have fun scolding me? General Lan looked at him ferociously, his eyes burning like torches. Yen Russian knew that something was amiss. He turned around and tried to escape, but it was too late. He was caught by General Lan like an eagle catching a chick. Yen Russian was beaten up mercilessly. You're the first one who dared to scold me to my face after so many years. How dare you? How dare you? If I don't entertain you properly, how can I let you down? In the faraway ink sky. Celestial Emperor Palace. A man in a black imperial robe stood with his hands behind his back. Dark golden dragon patterns were faintly discernible on his black robe. He frowned and seemed to be thinking about something. He gestured with his 2 fingers and his face darkened. Even with my cultivation, I'm still feeling uneasy? What happened? The man in the black robe muttered to himself. Right at this moment, a sharp sound of something breaking through the air was heard. Someone rushed in while rolling and crawling. My lord! Something bad has happened. Why are you so flustered? Bastard! The man in the black robe was the heavenly emperor of the ink cloud sky, Yuan Tianjia. He said angrily, "This is the palace, where the heavenly emperor's dignity resides. How can you be so flustered? No matter how big of a matter it is, let me catch my breath first before we talk." Yes. That person was sweating profusely. He panted heavily and calmed down his breathing. When his breathing finally stabilized, he said impatiently, "Your Majesty, something big has happened. The Taiga's life tablet was broken just a few minutes ago." His life tablet was broken? Yuan Tianjia's eyes darkened. Tai? Didn't he go to the eastern royal sky? How could... Tai roared, "Shit! His life tablet was broken?" The entire inky cloud city shook a few times due to this loud roar. His life tablet was broken. I'm afraid he's doomed. Before that person could finish speaking, the heavenly emperor of the ink cloud sky disappeared. In a hidden room, a few women were standing there in a daze, looking at the broken life tablet on the table as if they had lost their parents. Space flashed, and Yuan Tianjia appeared here. Looking at the broken life tablet on the table, Yuan Tianjia's expression became as cold as ice in an instant. However, a frightening murderous aura slowly spread out. What's going on? Who can tell me what's going on? His voice was gentle and calm, as if it didn't contain any anger. However, only those who were familiar with him could understand. This kind of tone clearly indicated that he was going to explode to the limit in the next moment, and kill to the limit. The entire ink cloud sky would be dyed red with blood. When the emperor was angry, the world would be bathed in blood. I'm afraid. A young and beautiful woman cried sorrowfully. He's doomed. Yuan Tianjia straightened his body and said gloomily, "Investigate the whereabouts of this little one, Tai's arrangements, and the situation of the people who went with him. Investigate everything, no matter how big or small, everything." In the shadows, a figure flashed away. After investigating Kangchu, let the 3 great sects come to our door and apologize. What I need to see is shit, they should understand. Yes. Yuan Tianjia left without looking back. His black clothes were as black as the sky. That was a color even darker than the night sky. Others might not be affected, but he was. If his life jade was broken, there was still hope for him to be saved. At least, there was a chance for him to enter the reincarnation cycle. But now, his life jade was completely broken. That meant, his divine soul was destroyed. Furthermore, he was killed by someone in the most cruel way. Cut into pieces. It was precisely because of this that this heavenly emperor ink cloud would suddenly burst into a monstrous rage. Chapter 1918. No matter who it is, even if the murderer is Shui Leihan's son, for daring to do this to my son, I will tear him into pieces. Those who went with him, if they can't even protect him, don't even think about living in this world. Mobilize the Mo Yun guards. Get ready to set off for the eastern royal heavens. The entire ink cloud sky was suddenly in a state of chaos. This is from P. I want to see who it is, who has such guts to actually kill my son. Yuan Tianjia's gloomy face was full of murderous intent. With his hands behind his back, he walked into the inner hall without turning back. Therefore, no one noticed that the moment Yuan Tianjia walked into the inner hall, a faint mist drifted out of his eyes. Then, it disappeared without a trace, as if it was hidden. That was a teardrop, but before it could flow out, it had already evaporated in his eyes. Even if he was a celestial emperor, no matter how decisive he was in killing, he still didn't have a heart of stone. He had feelings in his heart. Dying a tragic death of love was still a heart-wrenching pain. In the faraway eastern royal heavens, the Eastern Emperor, Jun Shui Leihan, stood under a flowering tree with his hands behind his back, staring at the southern sky. As if he felt something, he smiled slightly, shook his head, and said softly, "If you come personally, I will accept it." His fair hand gently stroked the already withered plum tree trunk, and he murmured, "A withered tree can still bloom. How can Mo Yun fight the eastern sky? The eastern sky is the sky, and Mo Yun is ultimately a cloud." Rootless. Following his words, the obviously withered and dead plum tree in front of him suddenly trembled. The dried and cracked bark actually miraculously emitted green, trembling, and a new sprout swayed out from the withered tree branch, full of vitality. Trembling, swaying, tender, and gradually growing. In an instant, the plum tree was already full of emerald green. Immediately after, the leaves of the tree fell, and the branches were filled with dense buds. With a gentle breeze, the buds slowly swelled and bloomed. Wisps of fragrance faintly wafted out, intoxicating. The plum blossoms bloomed, and the fragrance was pleasant. A smile appeared on Shui Leihan's face, just as the wind blew on the tree. When the first petal fluttered down, the snow-white figure floated up into the sky. This will. Yun Tian had already left for a long time. However, Chu Yang remained silent in the study for a long time. Then, he suddenly walked out and said a few words to everyone. His black robes fluttered as he dashed out at top speed, leaving behind a trail of dust. This is my chance. Or perhaps, I can establish my own team. Chu Yang would not let go of this opportunity. Yun Tian, who had already returned to the camp, immediately issued a summon. Men, use the 10,000 miles sound transmission to contact Mo Yun Tian. Yes. It was a piece of jade with circles of green spirals on it. It seemed to be some kind of mysterious formation. Yun Tian shouted at this jade pendant. Then he said directly, Yuan Shida has died in the Eastern Royal Heaven. The person who killed him was none other than the Eastern Royal Heaven's Chu Yang. All the experts of the Demon Ghost sect that came with us have been annihilated. In addition, the people of the Iron Sword sect and the Cold Ice sect don't dare to return. They have been absorbed by Chu Yang. After finishing these words, Yun Tian exerted force in his hand. With a smack, this priceless communication jade was already crushed by him, cutting off the connection with the other side. The elder at the side was stunned. Young master, have those two sects already decided to submit to Chu Yang? Chu Yang's actions are actually so fast? This is an open provocation towards Mo Yun Tian. Not yet at the moment. Yun Tian said lightly, but after they struggle in their hearts, they will definitely accept the conditions given by Chu Yang. However, how can we let Chu Yang have this part of their strength so easily? Let Chu Yang be the bad guy, but we still can't give him the benefits. What I can't get, no one can get. The elder was stunned and didn't say anything for a long time. As long as that side knows, regardless of whether this is true or not, with Heavenly Emperor Mo Yun's temper, the people related to these two sects will definitely have no way out. Those people, he will definitely kill them all one by one. Yun Tian said in a low voice, Chu Yang, his hidden strength is already terrifying enough. Such a person can't be allowed to spread his wings. We have to cut off his wings anytime and anywhere. Even if it's those who can become his wings, we can't let them off. Yes, this subordinate understands. That elder bowed and acknowledged. Have the batch of heavenly treasures that I asked for previously been transported over? Yun Tian asked. It's already here. Furthermore, the amount of each kind has exceeded. With regards to young master's needs, the sect will naturally do our best. That elder replied respectfully. Yun Tian said decisively, since that's the case, contact the flying ship immediately. Just wait for the people to arrive and send them back immediately. Sending them back a day earlier is also an advantage. I believe that this Eastern Royal Heaven won't be stable for too long. Mo Yun Tian, Heavenly Emperor Palace. Eastern Royal Heaven was killed by Chu Yang? Who is Chu Yang? Heavenly Emperor Mo Yun Tian looked at the guard who came to report and slowly frowned. This is still unknown for now. Even the accuracy of this information can't be confirmed yet. The other side only said one sentence and immediately cut off the connection. Furthermore, the communication jade was completely destroyed. There's no way to find out who the other party is. Yuan Tianji frowned and said, from the looks of it, this information should be true. According to common sense, it's impossible to hide such a big matter. As long as our people go to Eastern Royal Heaven, everything will be revealed. Yuan Tianji paced slowly. Therefore, this information shouldn't be fake. Since that's the case, immediately send people to Eastern Royal Heaven. I want that Chu Yang alive. Bring him back to see me. When Yuan Tianji said the last 3 words, he finally revealed a deep hatred. Chu Yang? You're the one who killed my son? Since you have the guts to kill someone, you have to bear the consequences of killing someone. May I ask, Monarch, the deployment of the troops this time? Let the Prime Minister arrange the specific details. I don't care about anything else. I only want to see the heads of those people. I also want a living Chu Yang to stand in front of me, to bear everything that he has to bear. That's it. Yuan Tianji's eyes seemed to be burning with 2 balls of raging ghost fire. Eastern Royal Heaven. Outside Purple Cloud City, Mo Yun Tian's sect's encampment. As far as the eye could see, there was only a deathly silence. The other people who came from Mo Yun Tian and Mo Yun Tian 2 big sections. Everyone's faces were like dead ashes. As if they had lost their parents, without exception. The people of Ghost Realm were all wiped out. The Grand Master of Mo Yun Tian was dismembered. This kind of bizarre conversion matter, they actually bumped into it so coincidentally? How much black smoke was rising from their ancestors' graves? Wasn't this the rhythm of screwing people to death? Everyone wanted to cry but had no tears. Chu Yang's strength was too strong. Finding trouble with him was just seeking death. But waiting here was just waiting for death. Mo Yun Tian's officials would definitely not let these people off. The Grand Master had died and died so miserably. How could you not die? How could you not die? These 2 sects, one was Iron Sword Sect, the other was Frost Ice Sect. Speaking of which, although these 2 sects were not as famous as Ghost Realm, they were ranked among the top sects in the entire Heaven Imperial Court. They were also able to occupy the top 20 positions. Their strength was not ordinary. The strength of any one of them was also above that of the Iron Blood Alliance in the past. This time, other than the experts of the sects, there were also the elders of the sects who came along to hold the line. The 4 people who led the team with the highest cultivation were also at the peak of celestial being. They were only 1 step away from the level of saint. But even such powerful existences were also defeated at this moment. Although Chu Yang did not kill them together with the other day, they felt that they had walked into a desperate situation. There was no way out, and destruction was imminent. The temper of Mo Yun Tian Heaven's Emperor, Yuan Tianji, was known by almost everyone in the entire Heaven Imperial Court. This time, his son was killed in front of them. They could not escape the crime of failing to protect him. As long as they went back, they would definitely die. No one has sent the news back yet, right? An old man took a deep breath and then sighed heavily. He only felt a melancholy that he had never felt before in his life. No. The others hung their heads dejectedly. They were not stupid. Who dared to send the news back? If they did not send it back, they could still have a moment of peace. The sooner Mo Yun Tian knew about this, the faster they would die. Everyone, we have no other way out now. The wrinkles on the old man's face seemed to have deepened. If we participated in the battle that day and attracted that killing god to our side, we would definitely die. Moreover, Yuan Shu too was also destined not to be spared. After all, that killing god's target had already locked onto him. But this reason will not be accepted by Heavenly Emperor Mo Yuntian. I believe that if we go back to Mo Yuntian, we will definitely die without any luck. We are drifting outside. If we hide our identities, our sex and families will still have a chance to be saved. If we return in one piece, everything will be over. The old man sighed. Hundreds of thousands of years old, they were actually forced to the awkward situation of being homeless for no reason? Everyone was speechless. Everyone was well aware of this result. But no one had the heart to say it out. Now that it was exposed by this old man, everyone was somewhat dejected. For a moment, no one responded. Where should they go from here on out? This was a problem. We struggled for tens of thousands of years. Could it be that it was just to hide our identities and rot with the grass and trees? Moreover, Heavenly Emperor Mo Yuntian's soul-sending curse had doomed them to be found and killed one by one. Wanting to hide their identities and live on, it was probably all wishful thinking. The difference was only, could they live for 3 more days? Or could they live for 3 more months? Or could they live for 3 more years? As for more time, it was impossible to cut it off. The future was boundless. Where should they go from here on out? Looking at the glaring blood that had not been cleaned up in time until now, the endless blood color, everyone seemed to have lost all strength. It was as if the pillar in their hearts suddenly collapsed and collapsed. The future was dark. Chapter 1919. At this critical moment, who would be interested in collecting the corpses of the ghost hunters? You bastards have caused us to be in such a miserable state. You still expect us to collect your corpses? Do you think we're cheap? From the beginning to the end, we are completely innocent. You stole other people's wives and were retaliated against. You deserve to be annihilated. That's retribution. But what did we do? We just stared at the disaster falling from the sky. Isn't this the legendary saying, when you sit at home, disaster will fall from the sky? Fuck, is there any justice in this world? At this moment, a voice suddenly said, why is the smell so bad here? When did so many people die? It's so scary. I'm scared to death. I'm a coward. Everyone turned their heads to look listlessly. Who exactly was the weirdo who could say such words? Today's battle was enough to shake the entire Heaven Imperial Court. How could someone say such sarcastic words at this critical moment? It was a spectacle. But when they turned around, they were all stunned. Baidu search P.C.O.M. When they saw the person who spoke, they realized that the sarcastic words just now didn't seem to be a spectacle. At this moment, the person who could say such words just now was the real spectacle. Nearly 400 people's eyeballs almost popped out at the same time. In the dusk that was about to come, a young man in black who stood out from the crowd was talking and laughing freely, strolling slowly. His steps were natural and light. His eyebrows were sharp and his eyes were bright. His whole body was filled with a kind of awe-inspiring aura as if he was testing the sword of the world. But all of these were not the problem. The real biggest problem, the real spectacle, was this young man. Everyone knew him. Everyone knew this person, but he was still not the real core of the problem. Not only did they know this person, but they knew him so well that he was engraved in their hearts. Although the total time they knew him was less than half a day. But as long as they saw him, it was as if they saw this figure in black again. Under the siege of all the experts of the ghost hunters, he attacked leisurely. A head fell to the ground. With a single strike, an expert had died. More than 200 first-class experts of the ghost hunter tribe were a tyrannical force that no one could ignore in any world. However, under this young man's sword, they didn't have the slightest power to fight back. They could only let him slaughter them one-sidedly. Chu Yang. This person was actually Chu Yang. That Chu Yang who just died. How is this possible? This unexpected fact caused everyone to overlook the tasteless, sarcastic remarks of a certain someone just now. What's wrong? Everyone? Chu Yang smiled wholeheartedly. I forgot that we don't know each other yet. I didn't think it through. Indeed, I was a little presumptuous. Now, let me solemnly introduce myself. My surname is Chu and my name is Chu Yang. I am from the Eastern Royal Heaven. I'm very happy to meet you all here, and I'm also very honored to be able to stand on Heavenly Emperor Ink Cloud's must-kill list along with everyone else. This is our fate. Everything is fate, Chu Yang said with a sigh. Everyone looked at him blankly. The initial shock when they saw that Chu Yang didn't die had already somewhat disappeared. After all, that white-robed man had once revealed the subtext that Chu Yang wouldn't die. Although he didn't say it clearly, and although everyone didn't believe it at that time, they couldn't not believe it now. However, what followed was even greater shock and not knowing whether to laugh or cry. If you didn't die, then so be it. But how can your skin be so thick to this extent? Standing on Heavenly Emperor Ink Cloud's must-kill list with us? Fuck you. Aren't we on the blacklist because of you, this bastard? Chu Yang. The voice of the old man in the lead was a little dry. He stared at Chu Yang and coughed to clear his throat before saying, Chu Yang, don't you feel a little embarrassed saying this? Chu Yang was amused. Embarrassed? You can just say that I'm shameless directly. Is there a need to be so reserved? The eyes of the old man in the lead turned cold, and he said coldly, so what if I say you're shameless? Isn't your actions today shameless enough? Isn't it thanks to you that we all ended up in this state today? That old man was also a hero of a region. He was also a high-ranking person who wielded great power. Under Chu Yang's repeated provocations, he no longer had any scruples and retorted sarcastically. Chu Yang tilted his head and looked at him from the corner of his eyes. Am I very shameless? I feel that you can say Yuan Shetu in this sentence, but you say me. Do you think this word is really appropriate? Also, is it really thanks to me that you all ended up in this state today? I really can't afford this favor. Who is the one who bestowed it? Everyone is well aware of it. That old man was instantly at a loss for words. Yes, if not for Yuan Shetu's snatching other people's wives back then, would Chu Yang flip out? If Chu Yang didn't flip out, would Yuan Shetu die? How could they be so miserable? In the end, the root of everything was still Yuan Shetu. Chu Yang sneered and said, You people from Imo Yuntian have been arrogant ever since you came. Later on, you became even more arrogant and lawless. You even did something as despicable as snatching other people's wives. Now, you actually turn around and say that I'm shameless? What are you thinking? Chu Yang laughed. If I didn't have any ability, wouldn't I have been humiliated for nothing? I'm shameless? Who's the shameless one? Not only shameless, but also despicable, vulgar, lowly, and despicable. That old man shook his head. His face was haggard and his heart was dead. He said, Forget it. The root of this matter is indeed Yuan Shetu's fault. But since things have already come to this, it's useless to say anything more. Whether it's us or you, Chu Yang, we're all about to die. There's no need to fight over personal feelings. He looked at Chu Yang and said, Manor Lord Chu, we don't intend to make things difficult for you. In short, we won't interfere with each other's business from now on. After all, we only have a few days of time left. These words were spoken in an extremely compromising manner. Because Chu Yang killed Yuan Shetu, they ended up in such a difficult situation. Although Chu Yang couldn't be blamed for the cause of this matter, even if they were enemies with Chu Yang, it might not be unreasonable for them to immediately fight. But at this moment, the people of the two major sects were already dead in their hearts. How would they still have the heart to fight for supremacy? They couldn't even be bothered to bury the corpses of the people of the ghost domain. This could be seen long ago. In addition, everyone also had a major concern in their hearts. If this guy was provoked, he would really go crazy. At that time, when he went crazy, the entire ghost hunter would die. How could they defeat him? At this time, it was better to have less trouble than more trouble. Now, if they could live for one more day, they would earn one more day. Rather than dying quickly here, they might as well hang on. Maybe they could hide their names and hide. Mind our own business. Your sincerity can be seen. However, I don't agree. Chu Yang said indifferently, today's matter, Heavenly Emperor Mo Yun's side will know about it sooner or later. At that time, I believe that no one can escape the fate of being hunted down by him. The worst-case scenario is that everyone is scattered and caught one by one, and die in humiliation like slaughtering chickens. Then what can we do? The one who spoke was a young man. At most, he was also around 30 years old. His face was calm, but it also revealed some defeat. It was precisely the candidate of Mo Yuntian's Iron Sword sect this time. If there wasn't Yuan Shetu, the crown of this young leader would most likely be his. But now, he could only become a follower. It was also this kind of young man that the unwillingness in his heart was even more intense. What to do? Chu Yang said indifferently, fight with them. Fight with them? Everyone's eyes lit up first, but they shook their heads one after another. In terms of their overall strength, it was not weak. Placed anywhere, it could be considered a considerable strength. But this strength also depended on who it was compared to. If it was talking about fighting against the entire Mo Yuntian, it would be like an egg to an egg. However, it was not even comparable to an egg hitting a rock. It was simply courting death. In fact, even courting death would not be done in such a way. Chu Yang sighed in his heart. The hearts of this group of people had long given birth to a deep-rooted intuition that Heavenly Emperor Mo Yun cannot be defeated. That was a kind of fear that was deeply rooted in the soul. If this fear could not be dispelled first, no matter how much they said, it would also be of no avail. Everyone, our positions are more or less the same now, and the situation is also similar. Let's not talk about whether or not to fight first. Just purely thinking about it. Chu Yang waved his hand. At this moment, dusk had already descended on the earth. The boundless night was about to rule the sky. This place was originally a place of trouble. No one wanted to come over to find trouble. Therefore, it was frighteningly quiet at this moment. Only the lights in the distance flickered. Everyone sighed but still gathered around. No matter what Chu Yang's idea was, it always brought a little hope to everyone. No matter how desperate they were still unwilling to wipe out this last bit of hope, no matter how slim this hope was. If everyone starts to flee from now and scatter to all parts of the world, making Mo Yuntian, who is searching for you, unable to find you, this way, a portion of you will have a certain chance to survive. Everyone has such an idea, right? However, we need to understand one thing. If Heavenly Emperor Mo Yun wants to find someone, then no matter where he hides, he will definitely be found within a few months. I absolutely believe in this point. I believe that all of you will also not doubt it, Chu Yang said. Everyone nodded silently. Not to mention this kind of peak expert like D, even those few experts under Heavenly Emperor Mo Yun also had this kind of ability. For millions of years, almost all the super experts in the Heaven Imperial Court would be grouped under D. Any one of those people also had the ability to overturn the universe. Besides, these people all had personal belongings left in the sect. As long as they gave those people a little clue, they would be able to accurately find them in the vast sea of people. Hiding was just a little bit of hope. You could hide for a day or two, a month or two, or even a year or two, but could you hide for a lifetime? Chapter 1920. I know you might feel wronged and think that I'm kicking you when you're down and taking advantage of you, but you have to understand that I'm not kicking you when you're down, nor am I taking advantage of you when you're down. I'm just stating a fact. The only way you can survive at this stage is as simple as that. See. Chu Yang said indifferently, a bad life is better than a good death. Following me may not be a bad life. It may be a bright path. You're not taking advantage of us. The old man gritted his teeth and said hatefully, you're taking advantage of the situation. Chu Yang snapped his fingers. So, you agree? If we don't agree, do we have any other choice? The group of experts wanted to cry, but no tears came out. Fate, oh fate, it has blocked all our paths. Only this narrow path with cliffs in all directions is left. Our only chance of survival, our only path, our only hope. It's all in the hands of this hateful guy. How can we not lower our heads when we're under his roof? We can only agree to temporarily rely on you. The old man said with difficulty, I'd rather die than be a slave. If it wasn't for so many juniors, if it wasn't for my family, if it wasn't for the fact that I haven't lived long enough, how can this old man endure such humiliation? The others were also in a state of panic. Ooh, it's too miserable. Temporarily rely on you? That's fine. It's a deal. Chu Yang said resolutely, actually, I'm asking you to attach yourselves to me. But this attachment period is only until we've overcome this crisis. If we die together, I'll give you my permission. If we die together, there's no need to rely on me. We'll all die together. But if you're lucky enough to survive after this incident, I won't force you to stay. You can do whatever you want. I've long understood that rushing is not a business deal. Chu Yang made a solemn vow. To be honest, I just want a unified command right now. After all, if there's no unified command in battle, we'll be defeated immediately. We're on the same side. I don't want you to die prematurely. Is this honest enough? Are you serious? The old man's eyes lit up. If we can borrow Chu Yang's strength to survive this crisis, then we can leave and return to the sect at any time. Are my words not realistic enough? Chu Yang said with a strong sense of righteousness, I'm a man of my word. Let's seal the deal. The old man took a step forward. Let's seal the deal. Chu Yang said without any hesitation. But the two palms were placed together. Junyun, whip the horse. Chu Yang had accomplished a magnificent feat along with these powerful and resonating words. Taking advantage of a person's perilous state, hitting a person when he is down, looting a burning house, and even sympathizing with a fellow sufferer and sharing the same boat through thick and thin. Not only that, but he was also wearing a noble mask. He was a weakling who was only at the peak of the saint level, using the tiger's might to intimidate others. He swindled and used every means possible to recruit a large number of first-class experts who were far stronger than him. He swallowed it in one gulp. Calamity Sword Master Chong Tian K's foundation finally took shape. It was a historic moment. Chu Yang knew the thoughts of these 400 experts from the two sections. Chu Yang was well aware of this. He hummed and agreed, but in his heart, he snorted disdainfully, You've come under Minister Chu's command. You still want to go back? I guarantee that you will never want to go back after staying here for a while. You won't leave even if I chase you away. What is freedom? Strength is freedom. The people of the two sects transmitted their voices to each other. As long as we get through this crisis, we will be able to do it. We will leave if we want to. I don't think this little guy's strength can stop us from leaving. He can't fight to the death with every one of us, can he? Everyone immediately calmed down. And they looked at Chu Yang with an additional feeling of a sucker in their eyes as a shield. A fool like you wants to recruit us? You must be crazy. You can die in front of us first. Chu Yang was secretly happy. As long as I have enough time, my strength will rise to a level where you can't catch up to. You want to leave by then? Burn the bridge after crossing the river? Ask the old Calamity Sword first. Why don't you ask around? When did I, King of Hell Chu, become someone's shield so easily? Subordinates, follow me. Let's go home to rest and sleep. Chu Yang achieved his goal and was proud of himself. Seeing Chu Yang go out for a stroll and bring so many experts back to the Chu clan without even saying goodbye, Lightning Snake and the others were stunned. Even Tai Budian and Wu Qian were stunned. They really didn't expect that Chu Yang would bring back such a huge team of experts after going out for a stroll. Moreover, they were already recruited by Chu Yang and ant recruiting experts. There weren't many such cases in the Heavenly Imperial Court since ancient times. They knew that these people had nowhere to go. However, they still felt a little surprised that Chu Yang had succeeded in this matter. Could it be that there was such a thing as charisma? Even if there was, did Chu Yang have such a charisma? It seemed that this person's character had reached the point of being omnipotent and infuriating. From now on, everyone is one family, Chu Yang said proudly. Everyone from the Iron Sword sect, you will live in the west courtyard. Everyone from the cold ice sect, you will live in the east courtyard. Every day, there will be 30 experts on duty to protect the courtyard. Also, Chu Yang didn't stand on ceremony and directly started to assign tasks. Everyone pinched their noses and agreed with a strange expression. Yes, that's it. All right, there's one more thing that I haven't told you. From now on, you are people of Heavenly Armament Pavilion. Chu Yang laughed. Heavenly Armament Pavilion? An old man frowned. Why does this name sound so familiar? There's a small gang over at Mo Yuntian's side. It's called Heavenly Armament Pavilion. The young man from before grinned. He said, it's a bandit organization. Not only do they rob everything, they also dare to rob anyone. That group of people is like a poor man who has been poor for 800 generations. Every time they make a move, they can't wait to snatch back even a blade of grass. Oh? There's also a Heavenly Armament Pavilion over at Mo Yuntian's side? Their influence is not small? Chu Yang's eyes lit up and he stood up abruptly. Tai Budian, Wu Chanxian, Huyan Aobua and the others also raised their heads abruptly. Their eyes were bright. They looked at the young man opposite them. With so many pairs of eyes looking at them at the same time, they suddenly felt like they were being eyed covetously. In an instant, their whole body was almost sweating. Do you know the name of the leader of Heavenly Armament Pavilion? Chu Yang asked cautiously. I don't know. It's just a small gang. What's there to find out? I vaguely heard that the leader seems to be surnamed Xie. Yes, his surname is Xie. Thank you for your thanks. Once this sentence came out, Madame Mei, who was in the corner of the hall, cried out in surprise. Her body went soft and she fell down. Tears of joy and excitement quickly welled up in her eyes. Heavenly Armament Pavilion. The leader's surname is Xie. Then this person is not Xie Danqiong. Who is he? The heavens have taken pity on us. There's finally news of Brother Jie. Although it's only one person, everyone's spirits were lifted. Xie Danfeng at the side couldn't control herself. She cheered loudly and danced with joy. How is he now? How is this organization? How many people are there? How is their strength? Where are they active? Xie Danfeng and Madame Mei rushed up at the same time. They asked a series of questions. This I really don't know. This guy called He Mengdan flushed. Every time that Heavenly Armament Pavilion moves, they come and go like the wind. Almost no one knows their exact information. They only know that it seems to be growing stronger every day. Although it's still a small gang, it can be regarded as a slightly stronger small gang. Their origin is a little mysterious. But they are still insignificant in the eyes of our sect. I only know bits and pieces because our sect's intelligence is powerful. They need to know the information of all the young experts in the whole of Moyun Sky. So, they investigate in passing. As far as the true strength of their gang is concerned, it's really not in the eyes of the big sects. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief. They were somewhat disappointed. But more than that, they were happy. It didn't matter if the information wasn't complete. The most important thing was that there was already a little news. Even if it was the most vague news, it was enough to prove that Xie Danqiong was still alive. Brother Jie was still working hard. Not only Xie Danfeng and Madame Mei, but the others also felt that a stone in their hearts had been lifted. Since Xie Danqiong could create a situation, there was no reason that the other brothers couldn't. Well, can everyone rest assured now? Chu Yang laughed out loud. Even Xie Danqiong can do it so brilliantly. The others can only be stronger. These words were obviously meant to comfort people. But Minister Chu was overjoyed. So, he didn't choose his words carefully. And these words offended two people at the same time. Xie Danfeng, Madame Mei. Xie Danfeng rolled her eyes and walked out. Are the others strong? Why don't I feel it? Madame Mei was such a gentle and good-tempered person, but she also rolled her eyes and walked away. Chu Yang's face was awkward. The girls snickered. Who told you to talk nonsense? This is retribution, right? But at this moment, Chu Yang's heart was really relieved. Among all the girls, Madame Mei's character was the weakest. Her heart was more sensitive, and her physique was the worst. During this period of time, there had been no news of Xie Danqiong. Although Madame Mei didn't say anything, her heart was on the verge of collapse. What Chu Yang was afraid of was that he didn't know when Madame Mei would collapse. But now with this news, even if it wasn't accurate, Madame Mei could still rest assured for at least half a year. And this period of time was the best time for Chu Yang to improve the physique of these brothers' wives and enhance their cultivation. Chapter 1921. It's really not easy to live with such a bunch of brothers and wives. Chu Yang's eyes were filled with tears. You bastards are all having fun outside and making me take care of your wives? You even have to endure the supercilious looks unconditionally. I'm so sad. Being old is such a tragedy. In the future, all of you will be directly under the leadership of the Heavenly Armament Pavilion Master. You must have a unified command. There were now 2 Heavenly Armament Pavilion Masters, Tai Butian and Wu Qianqian. No matter how strong these people's cultivation was or how high their status was in the martial world in the past, Tai Butian and Wu Qianqian were both first-class leaders. Chu Yang believed that the 2 of them could definitely convince this group of people wholeheartedly if they joined forces. Next, he had to prepare for tomorrow night's auction. This auction must not be messed up. It must create a sensational effect. Waving his hand, he let everyone choose their own weapons. Then Chu Yang went to the study to think deeply. The people of Icy Ice Sect and Iron Sword Sect did not care much about Chu Yang's arrangement at first. They were all either famous people or new young experts. They already had their own weapons. Even the weapons of those famous people were beloved items that they carried with them for many years. The moment they arrived, he arranged for everyone to get new weapons. Did he think that they were all poor people who did not even have decent weapons? Even if the weapons he gave were better, wouldn't they still need to be used? After seeing the piles of weapons in the warehouse, their eyes almost popped out of their sockets. A warehouse full of weapons didn't seem to be anything out of the ordinary, but a warehouse full of such weapons was way too out of the ordinary. Earth-grade weapons, heaven-grade treasured sabers, heaven-grade peak swords. Any one of them could cut through iron like mud. Shortcut hair. These seemed to be legendary divine blades. But now, they were piled up like a mountain in front of them. This was really too shocking. So we were really poor people. Otherwise, why would they call this Heavenly Armament Pavilion? There were heavenly armaments everywhere. Everyone rushed up like hungry wolves. With these heavenly armaments, those scrap metals were nothing. So what if they were temporarily out of practice? They could be used after some practice. Everyone held the weapons they had just obtained and couldn't help but have the same thought in their hearts. How rich and imposing. Looks like there must be a powerful backer. This kind of arrangement, even a celestial emperor might not necessarily be able to give it. It wasn't that a celestial emperor couldn't take out these weapons. It was possible that they could, but they might not be willing to give out so many at once. From the looks of it, this tribulation. Perhaps, there was still a chance to survive it? The night passed just like that. Tai Butian and Wu Qianqian had mobilized their troops. Now that they had so many experts joining them, the 2 of them had turned the Chu clan's courtyard into an iron bucket. The second day arrived. The auction was about to begin. Heavenly Armament Auction Hall. As the original Celestial Armament Auction Hall had been intentionally or unintentionally destroyed by some participants, the new Celestial Armament Auction Hall had the same name as the previous one. Everything else was completely new. Red decorations were hung everywhere. It was magnificent. A gust of wind blew, and the fragrance of flowers drifted out. It was obvious that the person who set this up had put in a lot of effort. At this moment, there were a lot of white-clothed people in the auction hall who were busying themselves in an orderly manner. Any one of these people. They were all experts. This point, as long as it was someone who had a little bit of common sense in the martial world, they could clearly see it. Although they weren't sure what level of experts they were, it could be seen from everyone's light footsteps and steady and long breathing. When Xue Xian, Hai Mingbo, and the rest came here, They were all suddenly shocked. They weren't shocked by the strength of these people. At least, not all of them. Although these people's strength was extremely strong and could be said to be real power, the main reason why they were shocked was the identity of these people. These people were all from Mo Yuntian's other two big sections. Why would they all appear here? They were still busy over there. This was definitely not something that they should be busy with. Could it be Yuntian's eyes shone with a strange light? Chu Yang's actions were indeed fast enough, swift enough, sharp enough, and pointed straight at people's hearts, turning passivity into initiative. But no matter how fast you were, no matter how you turned passivity into initiative, the result was still to no avail. The current Mo Yuntian must have already turned into a pot of messy porridge, right? Facing Heavenly Emperor Mo Yuntian's thunderous rage, how could you survive? Zi Huang and Mo Lu, these two youngsters, similarly walked in with a solemn face, expressionless. Seeing Chu Yang suddenly rise up like a comet, the two also didn't know what they were thinking. The only feeling they had was mixed feelings, complicated to the extreme. But the two also had the same feeling. If I were in Chu Yang's position, I wouldn't be able to do it. At the very least, killing Yuan Shetu, this kind of thing, the two didn't dare to. Even if they were really greatly insulted, they still dared to imagine grabbing Yuan Shetu and giving him a beating. But talking about really killing, they really didn't dare to do it. But Chu Yang dared to. Not only did he dare, after killing him, he even did all the follow-up matters so cleanly. He recruited people, strengthened his own strength, and made it clear that he was going against Mo Yuntian. Regardless of what his ending would be, at the very least, the current Chu Yang presented a kind of high-spirited and prosperous attitude. This was already an achievement that was hard to erase. Everyone entered the door. This time, they were much more careful than the last time they came in. First, they checked each person's identity, then they entered one by one. Right now, Chu Yang had gathered all the elites of the Ink Cloud Sky and Sky Cloud Sky sect for this trip to the Eastern Royal Heavens. His strength was so great that it couldn't be mentioned in the same breath as before. Although his overall strength couldn't be compared to any of the super sects here, his strength on the surface and in reality was already above the strength of any of the sects here. How could everyone be as casual as before? Attending an auction and we actually have to be interrogated like this. This is really fucking depressing. Wu Zhangxiu rubbed his bald head, his face full of dissatisfaction. He muttered, "Try to bear with it." The person beside him transmitted a message to him. Now, Chu Yang's side is very strong, and they are a group of people who don't know if there will be a tomorrow after today. They can be said to be a group of the most standard desperados. If you are targeted by them and fight to the death, no matter the result, you will definitely be very aggrieved. That's true. So be it. Wu Zhangxiu sighed and nodded repeatedly. This is the base camp of desperados. The most terrifying part of Chu Yang's team was here. We have even offended Heavenly Emperor Mo Yun, so what if we add you guys? Those who are barefooted are never afraid of those who are wearing shoes. You guys dare to provoke us. We dare to make a move and slaughter you guys. This is how it is now. Slaughter one more is one more. Slaughter one more is enough. Slaughter two more is profit. The more the more. One must know that a dead pig is not afraid of boiling water, and lice won't bite people. There were a total of 83 super sects that sent representatives to attend the auction. Each sect only sent 3 to 5 people, but they were all gathered together. The total number of people also reached more than 200. Therefore, the scale of this auction was definitely not small. It could be seen from the number of heads alone. Furthermore, the quality of the guests created the word most. Their strength was the highest, most experts, most concentrated, most complete. Everyone entered the auction venue with a strange mood. Just as they entered, their eyes lit up. They saw groups of people in snow-white robes. Children who looked like they were made of jade were busy in the venue. They served tea and took out pastries. They greeted the guests one by one in a well-trained manner. All of them were like butterflies flying through flowers. The oldest was only 13 or 14 years old, and the youngest was probably only 8 years old. This time, we finally have something to entertain. It's really not easy. Everyone thought so in their hearts and finally felt a little more balanced. As long as it was not ignored like last time, it was fine. Last time, they did not even get to drink a mouthful of water. Everyone who had participated in the auction last time actually had a strange feeling of being overwhelmed by favor. This feeling was really strange. Facing an ant like Chu Yang, we can have this kind of overwhelmed by favor? Wasn't this a complete reversal of the situation? Although this little one's current strength has advanced to same position, to the majority of us here, he's still an ant. At most, he's an ant, a relatively strong ant. Nothing more. And, right, how did Chu Yang, this little one, become a same position? Previously, he had just broken through to heaven position. This was quite a big leap. What's going on? It seemed that at this moment, everyone finally understood something that was definitely wrong with them. Chu Yang was now a saint position expert. Although this strength was still not a threat to them, the speed of his improvement was too terrifying. To the major sects, the strength of a saint position expert was not considered the top strength. In fact, most of the young genius experts could have the strength of a saint position expert. For example, Yun Tian, Zi Huang, Mo Lu, and Yuan Shedu all had the strength of a saint position expert. There was also Mo Yun Tian, another young genius who had such strength. Although it was rare, it was not that rare. However, Chu Yang's situation was different. Chu Yang had just ascended to heaven position for a few days. At the beginning, he was only at the peak of human position. After that, he broke through human position, earth position, and even heaven position. Although his progress was considered extremely fast, it was still not enough to enter the eyes of the major sections. After all, this kind of strength was really not presentable. Yun Tian and the others saw Chu Yang as an old enemy, probably because they were wary of Chu Yang's schemes, courage, and other factors, as well as the guiding factors of their old enemy's jade pendant. Because Chu Yang's real combat strength was really not enough to enter their eyes. However, the reality was so unexpected. In this Mo Yuntian incident, Chu Yang, with his original heaven position strength, used an inexplicable technique, and his strength increased to an unimaginably terrifying level. With his strength alone, he slaughtered all the living forces of Mo Yuntian's strongest sect. But after that, Chu Yang's strength was exhausted and he seemed to have died. Only then did everyone heave a sigh of relief. But after half a day, or even less than half a day, Chu Yang came back to life. Not only did he come back to life, but he also reached the level of saint position. Chu Yang's hidden strength at this moment was still bottomless, and he could make another breakthrough at any time. Chapter 1922. How can there be such a thing? All the super sects were shocked by this turn of events and found it hard to understand. Those young geniuses were especially depressed. The reason why they were able to reach the level of a saint at their current age was because they had spent countless heavenly treasures and the efforts of countless sections. Furthermore, they had worked hard since they were young and had gone through countless hardships to obtain this achievement. However, this achievement that they were so proud of was nothing in front of this. What the fuck? It was because of this abnormality that today's participants had accepted the personal inspection and gave the auction a certain amount of respect. At this moment, everyone felt comfortable with the most basic courtesy and waited with interest. They were whispering, laughing loudly, or looking left and right. Only Hai Pinbo, Shui Xian, and Yun Tian, who were observant, stared closely at these children. Geniuses. There were actually geniuses? And they were all geniuses. The three of them almost fainted. What kind of situation was this? I've already exchanged some young geniuses with my YGenG. But here, why were all the youngsters here still geniuses? None of these children were ordinary, and each one of them was 1 in a million. The three of them stared straight at them. However, Yun Tian's gaze was extremely greedy. As for Shui Xian and Hai Mingbo, they smiled bitterly and were a little disappointed. They had already obtained a batch of geniuses previously. Everyone had their own matters to deal with. With these geniuses, if the sects wanted to nurture them all into heroes, they would need to have a certain amount of resources. They would need to use up more than 80% of the sect's resources. The resources that the sect could provide were already the limit. In fact, they had already exceeded the limit. With the current situation, no matter how envious they were, they could only look at the ocean and sigh. Because if they were to forcefully accept them, it would not only delay them. Furthermore, it would further weaken the sect's strength. Going too far was as bad as falling short. The gains did not make up for the losses. It could be said that in every super sect, these super geniuses were all nurtured with countless heavenly treasures and painstaking efforts. Every one of them. It was a huge fortune. How could they nurture more of them? In the past, geniuses were hard to find. But now they did not have the strength. How sad. Yun Tian, on the other hand, was ecstatic. If I can bring all these children back, the Heavenly Sword Alliance's power, Extreme Heaven's power, and my family's power, that brought about a kind of abnormal expansion, an extreme expansion, rapid growth. But the three of them weren't the only ones with good foresight. Everyone who came here was a core member of their respective sections. These people. Which one of them wasn't experienced and knowledgeable? After getting rid of the initial curiosity, they started to notice these children. At first, all of them are pretty and adorable. But after a few more glances, their expressions changed. The noisy hall suddenly quieted down. Everyone looked at each other with indescribable shock in their eyes. So many geniuses had appeared in this world. As they watched, their hearts burned with passion. If everyone's drooling eyes made the children a little scared. What's wrong with these old guys? Why were their eyes all green? What were they trying to do? Are they trying to harm us? Ruguo was not like these children. He had experienced many things in the past, and many of them would probably be scared to tears. The gong finally sounded, and the children heaved a sigh of relief before retreating. The experts from the various sects all looked at the children with drooling eyes, not looking away for a long time. Even when the auctioneer was standing on the stage, no one noticed it. Cough, cough, everyone. On the stage, the temporary auctioneer was a little depressed. This is ZJ's first time carrying out a mission. Why is everyone so distracted? I'm the main character, and I'm the center of attention, isn't that good? I've been standing here for a long time, and these fellows are all turning their heads to look elsewhere. What the fuck is this situation? The auctioneer coughed a few times like a tuberculosis patient, but he still couldn't get the expectant gazes of the crowd back. He steeled his heart and directly smashed the auction hammer 3 times with a bang 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 sound, which really shocked the crowd. Everyone reluctantly retracted their gazes, but there were still a few people who glared at the auctioneer. If it wasn't for the fact that the auctioneer was an extraordinary person and had a strong foundation, those few glares would have scared them to death. Without exception, everyone's hearts were pounding. It took a lot of effort to get ZJ's attention back to the auction. It was not that these people were inexperienced and did not perform well. On the contrary, it was because these people were too observant and knowledgeable. That's why they were so unsightly. In the eyes of ordinary people, the scene just now was at most praising the arrangement of the main house, which was pleasing to the eyes and refreshed the minds of the attendees. But in the eyes of those who were too discerning and knowledgeable, there was only shock left. It was too shocking, too shocking. How can such a situation happen? This is too unbelievable. Normally, these geniuses, monsters, and even heaven-defying youths might not even appear once in 100 years. Why are all of them here? That bastard Chu Yang is a blind bastard. He actually used these treasures with such outstanding aptitudes to entertain guests or even to do the work of a servant. This is simply a reckless waste of natural resources. Isn't he afraid of retribution? Isn't he afraid of being struck by lightning? Or am I dreaming? If not, how can I see so many geniuses gathering here? Sigh. Even if this is a dream, this dream is too beautiful. This is not a dream. Even if this is a dream, it can't be that all of us are having the same dream. Those kids, I must get them. As long as I can get them. Our sex revival is not a problem. Whoever dares to snatch them from me, I will kill them. No matter who it is. No matter the cost. Almost everyone had such crazy thoughts surging in their hearts. The person on the stage began to introduce the various items that were being auctioned this time. Everyone, the items in this auction are even better than the previous one. The first item is a heavenly man-grade saber. The saber. It has a strong demonic aura mixed with it. As long as you hold this saber in your hand, you will be like a group of vengeful spirits and ghosts. The heavens are worried and the earth is miserable. Everywhere it passes, nothing lives. This first saber was something that Chu Yang had obtained from the soul-suppressing stone. In other words, the cost was 0. It was even cheaper than the previous items. It was definitely a business without any cost. Now, all the items below had become his personal collection. As for the original items of the ZJ, such as the rare herbs, Chu Yang had not taken any of them out this time. Even with the elixir spirit, the rare herbs had also become a renewable resource. It was just that the regeneration cycle was slightly longer. But it was better not to take them out for now. If someone used this clue to dig out the roots of the ZJ, then it would be very bad. Last time he did not care. But this time, he was surrounded by powerful enemies. It was better to be careful. There was another important reason why Chu Yang had such an idea. Last night, Chu Yang counted his harvest and was surprised to find that there were a lot of very high-grade heavenly treasures, divine weapons, secret manuals, treasures, and so on that he didn't even have the slightest impression of them. They were all top-grade heavenly treasures, divine weapons, secret manuals, treasures, and so on. They all appeared out of thin air in the space. They were mixed together with the items that the ZJ had originally collected. Chu Yang thought left and right. He thought until his head hurt, but in the end, he still could not figure out where these things came from. The ZJ had clearly collected them before, but how did they appear just like that? He asked the sword spirit, but the sword spirit was also confused. Could it be that they fell from the sky? The only thing that could be confirmed was that these items were of the same origin as the items that the ZJ had collected. They had the same aura and smell. They were definitely from the soul-suppressing stone. That meant that they did not fall from the sky. But where did they come from? What a dilemma! Chu Yang was confused, but this did not affect his joy. Since they are here, then they are mine. I don't care how they came. Anyway, I will get them sooner or later. The most important thing now was to exchange them for money. Purple Cloud coins. The more the better. There was still the Purple Cloud Palace waiting for him to collect, and there was still a bet waiting for him to make a profit. Although the bet with Yu Miao and the bet did not seem to be a big deal now, but no matter how small a grasshopper was, it was still meat, wasn't it? At this moment, the auction house was in an uproar. Everyone's hearts were filled with waves of shock. Waves surged violently, rising and falling one after another. What was this auction house trying to do? Using so many young geniuses as servants, and the first item to be auctioned was actually a heavenly man-level treasure saber. Moreover, its attributes were so terrifying. What else could there be in the future? Were they trying to scare people to death? Many of the swordsmen's eyes were green with envy. The only thing they were thinking about was whether they had brought enough Purple Cloud coins this time. If they missed out on such a godly saber, they would regret it for the rest of their lives. Why didn't they bring more Purple Cloud coins? Then, there was a round of crazy bidding. The bidding price gradually increased, and Chu Yang was grinning from ear to ear. The final bidding price for this saber was 100,000 Purple Cloud coins. This price was probably because this was the first item to be auctioned. Most of the people did not know that there were other good items to be auctioned later. Most of the bidders were swordsmen, and the final price was not outstanding. However, this price made a certain king of hell very happy. This was a profit of almost 1 million without any capital. Worth it. Too worth it. To be continued. Chapter 1923. Purple Cloud coins poured into his account. Minister Chu's mouth was so wide open that it sprained his cheeks, unable to close it. He even temporarily forgot about the terrifying crisis that was about to come. Baidu search P.C. The situation at hand was very clear. Every time he auctioned off an item, he would be one step closer to that purple cloud mansion. Then he would be one step closer to unsealing the purple cloud tower. One step closer to the miracle medicine. One step closer to the calamity sword. Wah! Following the sensational appearance of the first treasure saber, the emotions of everyone present were completely aroused. Each and every one of them was waiting with shining eyes. If there was a saber, there would be a sword, there would be other things, there would be the highest grade of heavenly treasure, everything was possible. This auction had completely become Chu Yang's personal gathering of wealth. Originally, he had planned to hold another auction, but now, Chu Yang had already given up on the next one. He might as well just do it all at once. Heavenly Emperor Mo Yun's people were probably about to arrive. He was already on the brink of death. Every minute and second must be seized. Chu Yang wanted to accumulate wealth at all costs and try his best to increase his strength to the greatest extent. Therefore, in this auction, Chu Yang auctioned off a total of more than 200 treasures. It was practically a clearance sale. In the end, when some of the items were taken out, it directly attracted exclamations and cheers from below. Even those senior experts with profound cultivation and extremely old age were also stimulated until each and every one of them seemed to have been injected with chicken blood. In the end, when Chu Yang tallied up the income, Fishy at the side was directly dumbfounded and tongue-tied. It was actually 170 million purple cloud coins. The money to buy Purple Cloud Mansion was so easily gathered, and there was still a lot more than that. That bet, I lost. Fishy felt as if his sky was about to collapse. There was still so much time before the date of the bet. How did I lose? Such an outrageous number. How did Chu Yang gather the full amount and even exceed it by so much? How is this possible? How is this possible? This is impossible. How is it? Chu Yang snorted and looked at Fishy with the corner of his eyes, full of high spirits and triumphant. Fishy's face was tangled. He said angrily, "What do you mean, how is it? You only have money now, you haven't even bought the Wuxia King's mansion yet. Do you think you've won for sure? Maybe the prince's mansion will be bought by someone else in 2 days." Chu Yang nodded and said, "What you said makes sense. Old cat, it's only for a day or two. I have to hurry up and complete the transaction procedures so that the Wuxia King's mansion will be completely under the Chu family's name. That way, everyone can truly be at ease, right?" Even though he knew that he had already lost, he still refused to admit his defeat. Still, he stiffened his neck and said, "Go buy it. I'll count if I can buy it. I'll wait and see." Actually, Fishy Guy really wanted to say, "Maybe today, maybe tomorrow, the prince's mansion will be burned down by lightning and fire. Do you think you'll win for sure?" However, he was too embarrassed to say it out loud. Even if he was stubborn, there had to be a limit. At this moment, the auction had come to an end. Almost all of the major sects below had obtained some loot. But, basically, every person in every sect had become a pauper. Jingling sounds could be heard from their pockets. Basically, everyone only had a few coins left. It was barely enough to eat and drink. Everyone smiled bitterly in their hearts. If this soul-suppressing stone matter continues to drag on like this, will we have to become bandits to make a living? The auction ended. Under normal circumstances, everyone should have left. However, this time, no one below moved. The auctioneer had already shouted 3 times that the auction was over and that everyone was free to leave. However, the people below were still indifferent. It was a strange thing indeed. "Everyone, this auction is over. Why are you still not leaving?" The auctioneer was completely helpless. After all, there's still... The problem is that everyone has already bought all of the items in this auction. There's really no more. I have something to ask to see Villa Master Chu. Wu Zhangxiu finally touched his bald head and stood up first. With this example, everyone immediately acted. If someone else took the initiative at this juncture, they wouldn't even be able to find a place to cry. "We want to see Villa Master Chu," everyone demanded together. The auctioneer frowned. I have to report and see if Villa Master Chu has time. Hurry up." Wu Zhangxiu stepped on the chair, somewhat impatient. If not for the fact that he had a request, Wu Zhangxiu wanted to fight directly. You scoundrel, I want to see a saint with a small position, and you actually dare to ask if he has time. Who do you think you are? Wu Zhangxiu's mental words were also the common thoughts of everyone present. However, no one dared to say it out loud. They really didn't dare to say it, afraid of offending people. Especially afraid of offending that saint with a small position. Offending him now was practically equivalent to digging up their own ancestral graves. In another room, Fishy's expression was unfriendly. I say, Chu Yang, are you really planning to sell all of these children? Chu Yang frowned deeply. Big brother, this has nothing to do with selling, okay? Fishy flew into a rage. Even if your original intention is good, the result is still sending them out. The result is like this, isn't it? Bang! Chu Yang slapped the table fiercely and roared in a low voice. If I don't send them out at this time, what else can I do? If I don't send them out, can I protect them? Heavenly Emperor Mo Yun's people are about to arrive. What kind of power the other party has, what kind of power we have, don't you know? Leaving them to be buried together? Fishy stared at him. Why are you so agitated for? Don't you have a chance of winning? And that new batch of people who came to join us, the power you have now is also not considered small. Do you really not have the power to fight? Chu Yang said angrily, what nonsense. Those high-end powers that I'm talking about are simply those people from Mo Yun Tian. The two of us were together the moment I came up. When did you see any high-end powers? Fishy was dumbfounded. You're really doing this empty-handed? What the hell am I doing this to you? Chu Yang glared at him fiercely. If you freaking give me a big mouth, we'll all be finished. Oh? Fishy was dumbfounded right away. He didn't expect that this guy was actually so bold. He actually really went from a place where he had nothing to fight for such a huge family business with his bare hands. And he was right next to him, watching. And he didn't even understand it. So, when Heavenly Emperor Mo Yun really arrives, in this Chu clan compound, including myself, we might not be able to survive. The possibility of dying is not death, but death without a doubt. What if you let these children stay here? No matter how good their aptitudes are, would Heavenly Emperor Mo Yun care about these? When the time comes, both Jade and Stone will perish together. Who can I protect? Forcing them to stay is to kill them. Fishy lowered his head and didn't say anything. The opportunity now is a heaven-sent opportunity, and also the last chance. It's just nice to send them all out safely. And so many sects are rushing to ask for them. When they reach the place, they definitely won't treat them badly. If we don't seize this opportunity, what are we waiting for? This time, the foundation of the Chu clan compound will definitely not be spared. Even if we're lucky enough to escape unscathed, can we still take them to exile everywhere? They're staying by our side now. Every moment that passes by my side is a little closer to the Yellow Springs Road. Fishy sighed. But when I think of using them to exchange for those resources, I keep feeling uncomfortable in my heart. Chu Yang said angrily, then tell me, what should I do? Give them away for free? If I really want to give them away for free, will those people really feel at ease to accept them? What kind of relationship do I have with them? Give them thousands of talented cultivation children for free? Even if they accept these children because of their talents, free things are the least valuable. Do you think they'll use all their resources to nurture these children? You're an idiot. Fishy was stunned. Suddenly he broke out in sweat. I really didn't think about it. You only think about being noble. Only thinking that I'm very despicable to do so. Chu Yang lowered his voice and growled. But have you thought about how we've gone through thick and thin together? It's also very heartwarming. But if they die because of this, is that noble? Everything now is the process. What I want is the result. Do you understand? The result. Fishy sighed painfully. So I want to pay a price. A lot of prices. Only things that are obtained after paying a huge price are truly valuable. Things that are obtained without any effort, no matter how precious they are, may not be cherished. Chu Yang said angrily, they must be valued. Fishy looked at the void in front of him somewhat blankly. He murmured, "But I just can't bear to. Although I know that what you said makes sense and that this is the only feasible path in front of me, I still can't bear to do it. I really can't bear to do it." "You can't bear to do it, so you came to me to make trouble for no reason?" Chuyang didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Fishy sighed and nodded. Chuyang was exasperated. Such a bastard. If he didn't beat him up, it wouldn't be enough to vent his anger. To be honest, Chuyang had long wanted to beat a certain cat up. Previously, he couldn't beat him because his cultivation wasn't high enough. These few days, although his cultivation was high enough, he didn't have the time. Was this a good opportunity? A certain king of hell was about to stand up and punch a certain cat to vent his frustrations when suddenly, someone called from outside. "Manor Lord, the people outside want to see you." "See me?" Chuyang waved his hand casually and said, "Tell them that I need sincerity and that I will only see one person at a time. Let them arrange themselves in order. They can decide who goes first and who goes last. Anyway, don't disturb me." The person outside was in a strange mood. "So many experts want to see you. Every one of them is a big shot. You want to see only one person at a time? What do you mean by don't disturb? If I really say this, will I be beaten into a meat patty on the spot?" When this news first spread, it did seem to cause a commotion. However, to the manager's surprise, after the commotion, the people below actually immediately expressed their acceptance. Someone shouted on the spot, "I'll be the first. I'm the most sincere." You're tuning in to the Han Li's Immortal Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.